Welcome into another edition of the Giant Overreaction. Y'all know what it is, man. The rawest, realest Giants content on the entire internet. We got a lot to talk about today. Not going to be one of those shows where I give y'all a time limit or anything like that because we got a ton to go over today. It was a fantastic performance by the offense last night, and what a thriller in Jerry World. I mean, I could have never expected that the New York Giants were going to go out there and score 37 points. That's something that was completely out of the realm of possibilities for me, especially after seeing that lackluster performance in Week 1 against the Washington Commanders. But the New York Giants go out there to Jerry World, and they fall just short in a thriller of a game, y'all. I was on the edge of my seat throughout the entirety of the second half of this game. The Giants end up falling to the Dallas Cowboys 40-37. And we talked about this on the preview show, y'all. 8 straight divisional losses in a row now. A good chunk of that is definitely at the fault and at the hands of Brian Daboll and Joe Schoen, and just not a good look trying to close that gap within the division right now. The Giants have beat the Cowboys just one time since 2017, and I mean, that was about as close as it gets. I mean, we're talking about holding a lead with 20 seconds left in this game. Dak Prescott now improves to 14-2 in his career versus the New York Giants and has won 14 straight games. Dak Prescott has not lost to the New York Giants since his rookie season. And the Cowboys have now won 16 of the last 17 games versus our New York Giants. They've scored over 30 points in 9 of those 16 wins. And the New York Giants did manage to score over 30 points, got back to those vibes that we were seeing from the preseason where they had 3 straight preseason games where they had scored over 30 points. Giants get over 30 points for just the 4th time in the Brian Daboll era since he's been here in New York as the head coach for the Giants. The Giants fall to 0-2 on the season, and there's some not too fun data that does not support us making the playoffs here. Since the division realignment, no team has started a season with 2 divisional losses and made the playoffs. So New York Giants are trying to become one of those first teams. They did do it before the divisional realignment back in the day, but it's going to be tough at 0-2 to make the playoffs here, man. Big shout out to the gang in the building, man. I see all of y'all here bright and early, and for those of y'all that got here at the top of the stream, I saw a lot of conversations happening, man. Salute to y'all. This was definitely one of those games that it should feel like, not even feel like, today should have been a victory Monday, but the New York Giants just couldn't close out, I think largely in part due to the defense. Big shout out to my dog, No Mets, No Nets, No Jets in the building, rocking out with us one time. He says, the more you watch the game, the more I question Daboll, questioning Bowen. He even put up a middle finger emoji there one time. He said he ain't that guy. Daboll is supposed to be that guy and head coach, but nope. I ain't got no pushback there, man. The last couple of games here have definitely not been in the favor of Brian Daboll, and I do understand people's sentiment, especially surrounding Shane Bowen and his future as the defensive coordinator for the New York Giants. But big shout out my dog, No Mets, No Nets, No Jets. Hector, your boy, is in the building one time. He says the Giants are like 2-75 versus the division under Daboll. At some point, you have to show you know how to actually win a game. I've never been so embarrassed to be a Giants fan under the last 2 coaches. Yes, it's been tough. It's been tough. I don't think that this game on Sunday necessarily is one of those times to focus on the embarrassing or the embarrassment that this franchise has been over the last couple of years, but definitely a tough loss. I know people are going to take that loss in different directions. Some people are going to be angry as all hell. For me personally, that's the kind of game I want to see from the New York Giants for the rest of the season. Just compete, just be in these games. And when you talk about a divisional matchup like that, to be in one of those like that in a bit of a boat race there, that was a good look for the New York Giants. So we'll see, man. We'll see how things progress here, but big shout out my dog, Heck, your boy in the building. Kevin, the PRF, is in the building representing those Washington Commanders. He says, so if a flag falls in the woods and no one is around to see it or hear it, would the penalty be on James Hudson? Likely, especially if it was the first drive of yesterday, man. That was a tough outing. We're going to be talking about that today, too. Big shout out to John in the building. He says, Authentic already knows how critical I am and was about this defense, and boy, did they not prove me wrong again. Has to be the worst tackling defense the past couple of years. Banks is a bust. Bowen gotta go. Man, we got a lot of hot topics. I see y'all already bringing them to the forefront of the conversation today. Big shout out to the gang, man. I see Darnell D is in the building. Who else we got here that showed up bright and early? Prime Time is in the building. I see you, fam. Good to see you in the building. Deedon Shelton's rocking out with us. Joe Marr, Nick the Wick is over here rocking out with the New York Giants fan one time. We got David in the building. We got Rob, a.k.a. NY Giants fan 48. Ken Sala in the building, represent for my dogs over there on Bleacher Report. Nova Nebula, Cressley in the building. Let me see. I haven't seen Cressley in a minute. Cressley said, I'm sick of uneducated NFL fans thinking we want Daniel Jones back. Russ is playing better ball than DJ ever could here in New York. Daniel Jones is playing like 2022 all over again. It's nothing special. Yeah, you're starting to see that, right? A lot of them Daniel Jones homers like, oh, man, we miss Daniel Jones, and this must be Brian Dable's fault because look at what, Shane Steichen is doing over there with Daniel Jones. But we'll see what happens. 2 good games from Daniel Jones. I'm not taking nothing away from him, but definitely an impressive performance from Russell Wilson yesterday in Sunday's matchup against the Cowboys. Chris P says, good afternoon, fam. I have high hopes and a lot of anger at the same time, man. Big shout out Chris Peace in the building. I see Ian is in the building, and we got our first super chat of the day from my dog Talking Eco, who's also rocking out with us with the $4.99 super chat. He says, my delusional self says the Giants started 0-2 in 2007 with 1 bad loss and 1 high-powered loss. My actual self says, overall, I miss Wink Martindale, man. I'm right there with you, Talking Eco. I was one of those guys that was definitely at the forefront for Wink Martindale when the whole debacle went down with him and Brian Dable. And, it just seems that there's a lot of blind faith within the New York Giants fan base when you think back to that time in 2022, 2023, when Brian Dable and Wink Martindale were having their beef. Everybody just automatically sided with Brian Dable and made Wink Martindale the bad guy. For me, I need a why. I need a reasoning if I'm going to be pointing the finger at somebody for being the bad guy. And in my opinion, Wink Martindale was definitely doing a pretty good job in those first 2 couple of seasons with the New York Giants. It's just unfortunate that, him and Brian Dable ended up having that little beef that had the New York Giants and Wink Martindale part ways. And now being the DC over there at Michigan, you saw a lot of Giants fans clowning him when he went back to college and all that. And Wink Martindale is still at the top of the game, whether it be on the collegiate level or whether it be on the NFL level. Big shout out to Talking Eco. Great way to start the show, man. I see a bunch of y'all in the building. I see Brian Perez is in the building one time. Adrian B is in the building. Let me see what Adrian said here. Adrian said, when we went for it on 4th down after that interception, I was scared it would come back to haunt us, although it was the best Giants game I've watched in years, so there is a pulse, just wanted to pull through. I said the same thing. I see David is in the building. Me and him were talking about it on Twitter, and I said I did not like that 4th down call one bit. And you look at the way the New York Giants ended up losing that game. They ended up losing by 3 points. I know it's in hindsight, and some things could have maybe transpired a little bit differently had the New York Giants took the 3 points there, but definitely came back to, bite us late in that game. So I'm with you on that one, Adrian. Jackson Brundage is in the building. He said, what in the world happened with the Russ interception? Bad route, miscommunication. Russ fell asleep. This is what I saw, and we'll talk about this a little bit more in depth, but I did get a chance to look at the All-22 this morning, and if you guys want to check it out, it's posted on my Twitter. The compilation of every one of Russ Wilson's throws is live on the channel right now if you want to check that out as well, and all of the snaps from the offensive line who had a really good game if you want to check that out as well. As far as that interception goes, Russ kind of felt a little bit of pressure from the outside, tried to step up in the pocket, and right before a defender got in his lap, he let that ball go. Now, Malik Neighbors has more space along the sidelines, but I think Russell Wilson, because of that pressure, couldn't make as accurate of a throw as he wanted to make, and that ball kind of drifted towards the middle of the field a little bit. You also got to consider that there was not a lot of success, right, as far as running the ball and the support surrounding Russell Wilson. So at the end of the game, he's looking for the one way that he saw work all day, which was throwing the ball deep down the field, taking shots, being aggressive. It's just unfortunate that it happened to be an interception late in the game, but I like that aggressive nature that Russell Wilson brought to the offense yesterday, much more than the conservative nature, the indecisive nature that we saw against the Washington Commanders in week 1. But nonetheless, sometimes you got to, high risk, high reward, and you got to live and die by that. And unfortunately, the Giants had to die by that. But if Russ is not playing as aggressive as he did in that game on Sunday, the Giants are not even going to be in that matchup. So I can't put, any blame actually on Russell Wilson for the reason why the New York Giants lost this game on Sunday to the Dallas Cowboys. But shout out to the fan, man. That's definitely a good statement and a good topic to bring up that we're going to be talking about a lot more on this show. And like I said, this one's going to be a bit of a slow burner today, y'all. We are definitely going to be slowly talking about this matchup. I'm not guaranteeing nothing. If we can get through all of the notes and get through all of the chat and we do that in a timely fashion, then so be it. If we're here for 5 hours like we were after week 1, then it is what it is, and it ain't what it once was, man. So we're going to have to deal with that today. Looking forward to having a good conversation with you guys about this matchup against the Dallas Cowboys. So let's get right into it, and let's talk about some of these hot topics. The New York Giants traveled all the way down there to Jerry World to take on Dak Prescott and the Dallas Cowboys.
They have, statistically, I think the hardest schedule.
I like the team. I like the chemistry. I like the leadership. We had a good training camp. We had a good spring. Now we're 2 weeks away. We have to go out and do it.
Gallops off the right side. Cuts the corner. Across the field. To the 40. To the 30.
We got another fucking opportunity. Put that in the line. Dance on me. Dance on me. 1, 2, 3 times.
Middle wide open. Slate runs out of attack from the 10. To the 5. He's in for the touchdown.
All right, let's talk about this first topic here real quick. We're going to talk about the running game. Y'all know I'm heavy on the RTDB vibes, heavy on the STDR vibes. Run the damn ball, stop the damn run. But it also starts with being disciplined. And the New York Giants were extremely undisciplined in this game. I mean, this is nothing new, not letting the cat out the bag here. The New York Giants had 14 penalties for 160 yards. 6 first downs given up to the Dallas Cowboys that were, by the way, a penalty. 7 declined or offset penalties on the day as well. I saw Dan Duggan tweeted this out this morning. He said they also lost 213 yards of actual yardage when you factor in the swing on positive offensive plays. For example, they lost 48 yards of field position on the penalty on the opening kickoff. The Giants were also 6 for 14 on third down. 4 for 16 on third down last week against the Commanders. That's 10 for 30 on the season. That's 33%, and that's good for 27th in the NFL. So not only along with the penalties do we got to clean that up, but third down and the red zone. The red zone was absolutely awful in this game. We did kind of salvage those numbers a little bit in the second half with the one possession that ended up in a touchdown within the red zone. But the Giants finished the day 1 for 5 in the red zone, while the Dallas Cowboys finished 3 for 3. So when you're looking at it through 2 weeks, the Giants defense has allowed teams to score a touchdown on 6 out of 7 red zone attempts. We're pointing the finger right at you today, Shane Bowen. And the Giants offense is just 1 for 7 in the red zone. Brian Daboll's call to go for it on fourth down. We talked about that a little bit. This happens right after the Andrew Phillips interception. It is a free possession for you. Take the free points. It's 3 free points for you. And at a time when the New York Giants defense was actually playing pretty decent in this game. I know they fell apart in the fourth quarter, going into overtime and whatnot. But at that point in the game, the Giants defense was playing relatively well. I don't understand why you don't just take the 3 points and put it in your defense's hand. And coincidentally, the Giants end up losing this game by 3 points. So that's not a good look on Brian Daboll. In my opinion, that was the main blemish on Brian Daboll's play calling and his just situational awareness in this game against the Dallas Cowboys. Now let's talk about the run. Stopping the run and being effective in supporting your quarterback by giving him a necessary running game. We did not give that to Russell Wilson in this game on Sunday, but Russell Wilson still found a way to succeed against the Dallas Cowboys. Now, let's look at last week as far as team rushing goes. Russell Wilson was the leading rusher last week against the Washington Commanders. The Giants totaled just 74 yards on the ground in week 1, averaging 3.2 yards per carry, just 30 yards on the ground from the running backs in week 1. We talked about this on the preview show. 47% of the Giants' week 1 rushes resulted in no gain. This week, just 64 yards from the running backs, just 84 yards on the ground total. And Tyrone Tracy is absolutely in struggle mode right now. Last week, 10 rushes for 24 yards, no touchdowns, 2.4 yards per carry. He had 0 explosive runs over 10 yards. This week, 5 carries for 14 yards, 3 yards per carry, 0 explosive runs on the entire season for Tyrone Tracy. That is now 8 straight games for Tyrone Tracy where he has had under 60 rushing yards. This is a guy that everybody wanted to crown at the end of last season, saying this is absolutely a Joe Shane hit, and there's no way that for me as a fan that I could do that. I got to look at multiple seasons and see what a player looks like over multiple seasons, usually about 3 seasons. 2 seasons would definitely be at least enough to be able to have a good direction on the evaluation process of Tyrone Tracy. But listen, if he doesn't get it going and if he doesn't get a spark sooner or later here, Cam Scatterboo is waiting in the wings to take his job from him. Now, in 2 games, Tyrone Tracy has 15 rushes for 38 yards, and he's averaging 2.5 yards per carry, and he's got 0 touchdowns. Keep this in mind. After last week, Versus Washington, Tyrone Tracy told the media that he did not agree with the play calling down the stretch from the New York Giants. Possibly a reason why we saw Cam Scatterbo get more attempts than Tyrone Tracy did in this game. Now, one thing that I had asked for in the previous week's preview going against the Washington Commanders, and this was a theme that I was looking for throughout the entirety of the season for the New York Giants, was balance within the running attack, right? Too often we saw the New York Giants heavy dosage of running the ball in the second quarter, and then by the time we got down to the third quarter and the fourth quarter, because the New York Giants were not within these games as far as the scoreboard goes, we saw the New York Giants abandon and neglect the run. Even at times in the first half, we saw the New York Giants, through the Brian Dable tenure, abandon the run. Even when we had Saquon Barkley over here on this roster, we would abandon the run in the first and second quarter. Now, there has been an even distribution of runs through each quarter for the New York Giants through the first two games of the 2025 season. 12 runs in the first quarter, 10 runs in the second quarter, 11 runs in the third quarter, 11 runs in the fourth quarter. That's something that we got to give Brian Dable and Mike Kafka their props on the way that they are calling these games, with an emphasis on staying balanced. I told you guys about those top 10 teams as far as run play percentage goes, and 8 of those top 10 teams from last year made the playoffs. But the yards per carry early in games is absolutely terrible, y'all. First half for us right now, 2.73 yards per carry for the New York Giants on the ground. We get to the second half, that number's almost doubling up. We're at 4.45 yards per carry in the second half. Now, I talked about Cam Scatterbo and possibly maybe being a guy that's going to take Tyrone Tracy's job. I think that if Cam Scatterbo had a bit of a more explosive play style, this would be a no-brainer. I think he would already have that running back one job already locked up. A decent showing from Cam Scatterbo. He did lead the Giants with 44 yards rushing on Sunday, so not too bad. Most importantly here, though, I can deal with an average rushing attack, but stopping the run is something that I cannot deal with, because this is a problem that the New York Giants have had for an extremely long time. This dates before Shane Bowen. This dates a bit before Wink Martindale. And this is just a problem that we have to find a way to iron out. Now, you're looking at the New York Giants. They had allowed about 136 rushing yards per game last season. Through 2 games, the Giants are allowing 177.5 rushing yards per game. And this is going up against what I would consider the lower level running backs that we are going to face this year. We haven't faced a Saquon Barkley yet, right? We haven't gone up against a rushing attack like the Chargers yet, who is a team that we know is going to just commit to that run, and the Giants are definitely going to have their hands full going up against them in a couple of weeks here. We've gone up against Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, a day 3 running back, and we've gone up against Javonte Williams, a guy that the Denver Broncos gave up on. And Javonte Williams has had 2 pretty decent games to start his career with the Dallas Cowboys here. On Sunday, 18 carries for 97 yards, 1 touchdown. The Cowboys rushed for 135 yards on 28 attempts, averaging 4.8 yards per carry. That's right around that 136 rushing yards per game that we allowed last season. So not good enough, and I thought that in the fourth quarter of this game, the Dallas Cowboys were forced to throw the ball. You can't forget that in the beginning of this game, the New York Giants defense came out there extremely hot, forced 2 3-and-outs, and the Giants offense was not able to capitalize on it. But that is why you played a full entire 60 minutes of the game. We only got 6 points off those first 2 drives, but the Giants offense started to correct some of their mistakes. And by the time we got to the third, fourth quarter, and then got down to the overtime, you saw the New York Giants finding ways to move the ball. Now, 2 out of 3 of the Giants' rushing yards allowed have come in the second half. Or I'm sorry, let me correct that. My bad on that. So in the first half, we've allowed 103 rushing yards. In the second half, we've allowed 213 rushing yards. So what I'm trying to say there is 2/3 of the Giants' rushing yards allowed have came in the second half. So this kind of dates back to what we saw last season when teams were playing ahead of the scoreboard, being able to run the clock out, and being able to just hammer the ball right down the teeth of our defense, and the Giants having not much success at stopping that. The Giants are allowing 6.6 yards per carry in the fourth quarter. We got to find a way to iron that out, and that's just through 2 games. In the first 2 weeks, the Giants are allowing 8.3 yards per carry on second down. So you're looking at predictable down and distances where the Giants know that the run is coming, and they still cannot find a way to stop it. When you look at the Giants, the rushing attempts that they have faced throughout the first 2 games, they faced a total of 60 rushing attempts. Only 4 out of the 60 rushing attempts versus the Giants have come on 3rd or 4th down. So that's going to show you that on 1st and 2nd down, when it's extremely predictable, the Giants are still not finding a way to be able to stop the run. I saw Bobby Skinner tweeted this out earlier today or yesterday. He said 4 years of this being a bottom 5 rush defense since Joe Shane got the job. And the defensive tackles that have been drafted are DJ Davidson, a 5th-round 24-year-old rookie, Jordan Riley, a 7th-round 25-year-old rookie, and Darius Alexander, a 3rd-round 25-year-old rookie. I'm not trying to speak for Bobby here, but it looks like he's trying to say that we are continuously drafting players at that position of need that are a little bit older. Definitely got to find a way to iron out some of those deficiencies. Now, Darius Alexander did play in this game a little bit. He did have one pressure when I took a glance at the PFF statistics, but it's still not enough that we're able to stop the run in a meaningful way where we can say these upgrades in the offseason from the draft and from free agency are really starting to pan out. But I will say this. We talked about getting pressure on Dak Prescott, and the Giants did do a good job of that in this game. We talked about the 15 games, the previous games going up against the New York Giants, where we only had 15 sacks against Dak Prescott in 15 games. The Giants had 3 sacks in this game. So you were looking at a 1 sack per game average leading up to this game. The Giants come in this game, and I think that the pass rush, the upgrades that we made in free agency and in the draft, Abdul Carter especially, are paying dividends going up against Dak Prescott. Dak was pressured on 20 of his 57 dropbacks. The Giants combined for 25 pressures, 3 sacks, 6 quarterback hits, and 16 quarterback hurries. Kayvon Thibodeau and Brian Burns led the New York Giants with 5 pressures each. They each also had a sack as well. Abdul Carter had 4 pressures on the day, 1 quarterback hit, 3 quarterback hurries, and aided that Drew Phillips interception that we saw. He was definitely causing a pressure on that one right in Dak Prescott's lap, and a big reason why that was an inaccurate throw that was intercepted by Drew Phillips. Dexter Lawrence, he had a 22.5 pass rush win rate on the day, and a lot of people have been asking. I've been seeing this on social media a ton. Where's Dexter Lawrence? This isn't the same Dexter Lawrence we're used to. Seems like he's a little bit rusty. This is what I'll say about Dexter Lawrence. I don't think that Dexter Lawrence is a game in and game out game wrecker. And there's a lot that has to do with that, right? There's a lot of context to it, right? Because Dexter Lawrence, one, is being double-teamed a ton. I also think it's just the nature of the position, right? It's much more easier for an edge rusher to dominate in the game and be able to get after a quarterback and impact the game in the type of fashion where he could be a true game wrecker, game in and game out, right? Whereas when you're in the middle of the defense, it makes things a little bit more difficult. And I think it's why a guy like Aaron Donald is regarded as such a great player, is because he was able to wreck games, game in and game out. And I think that Dexter Lawrence has that ability, in about half of his games, I'll say. He's definitely playing that role of a game wrecker, but being consistent, I think that that's something that Dexter Lawrence definitely lacks as far as that ability to just completely change the trajectory of a game. But that's why we brought in Brian Burns via trade a year ago. That's why we went out there and drafted Abdul Carter. That's why we went out there and drafted Kayvon Thibodeau in 2022. That's why we brought in Chauncey Golston and drafted Darius Alexander, so that we have pieces around our great nose tackle, maybe the greatest nose tackle to ever play the game, and those guys can find a way to get after the quarterback. With all that said, getting pressure on Dak Prescott, I knew it was going to be a problem because Dak Prescott's one of the most decisive quarterbacks in the league. The first 2 possessions, definitely in struggle mode. At the end of the quarter, the first quarter, the Dallas Cowboys only had 11 total yards of offense, but Dak Prescott finished the day with some pretty good numbers. 38 of 52, 361 yards, 2 touchdowns, the 1 interception, a QBR of 70.5 out of 100, with 2.64 seconds as far as the time to throw. And in the fourth quarter, Dak Prescott just lit it up, to be honest. 15 of 20 for 187 yards, 1 touchdown, no interceptions, and a passer rating of 116.9. So all in all, we feel as if we have the personnel that's necessary now for the New York Giants to have a much improved defense. Everybody came into this season with this defense having expectations of being a top 5 unit. Last year it was with the expectation this unit could be a top 10 unit. I don't know why we weren't a top 10 unit last year, but bringing in a guy like Abdul Carter and a few other pieces, Javon Holland, who also had a really good game, especially in the first half. Paulson Adebo, a mixed bag along with Drew Phillips. I thought there was some good, some bad. But you would think with all that personnel that the New York Giants defense would be better served in 2025. And we aren't quite seeing the results just yet. I think as far as the pass rush goes, yeah, we're seeing these guys get after the quarterback. We had Brian Burns get the 2 sacks a game ago and then have 1 in this game as well. So I do think we're getting after the quarterback. But at the end of the day, I think that being a well-rounded defense, we have not quite yet seen those type of results yet from Shane Bowen and the New York Giants defense. And I do encourage fans to just pump the brakes a little bit. Let's wait until we get the results before we start crowning these units as top 5 or top 10. But we'll see. I think that Shane Bowen is absolutely now on a hot seat considering the way that the Giants have played over the first 2 weeks. And, going around on social media, it seems that most of the blame is being pointed at the defense and being mainly pointed at Shane Bowen, and I think that is definitely the right call as far as Giants fans and who to blame. We always look for this, and I know we're not the only fan base that does this. I saw this with the Washington Commanders after Thursday night's loss to the Green Bay Packers, like finger pointing, man, like, yo, Mike Sanry he ain't playing good. Bobby Wagner this, and Dorrance Armstrong this, and all the guys that played well in week 1 now are in the doghouse for the fan base. So I do understand it, but today, man, we definitely got to talk about the man of the hour, man. And that was Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson went out here. What have I been saying on these streams leading up to the season? That if we want to have a shot at making the playoffs this year, we need to get that vintage Russell Wilson that we saw from 2020 with the Seattle Seahawks where he put up 40 touchdowns. We absolutely did not get that in week 1. In week 2 against the Dallas Cowboys, this might be better than 2020 version of Russell Wilson because this was a career high as far as passing yards go for Russell Wilson. He was 30 of 41. That's 73.2% with the 450 yards through the air, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. He was sacked 3 times on the day. The average depth of target was 11.9 yards. And, man, considering the way that the past 6 years have gone and the New York Giants playing this whole dink and dunk style of football, to see the ADOT at 11.9 is absolutely amazing. Russell Wilson was 7 of 11 on attempts of 20 yards or more, air yards actually, and his time to throw, I thought this was a very interesting number. And time to throw is a statistic that can confuse a lot of us, and I always tell people, don't use this statistic to try to point the finger at whether your offensive line is playing well or if your offensive line is playing poorly. When you look at last week against the Washington Commanders, the time to throw for Russell Wilson was 2.71. A lot of that had to do with him being on the run a lot of the time, right? Pressure getting to him quickly, trying to extend plays and buy time and running out of the pocket and bailing out of the pocket early. You had all these NFL pundits saying, oh, man, Russell Wilson, he's cooked, can't keep his eyes down the field. He's got his eyes down on the line. And once a quarterback starts looking down, it's over for him. There's no way that I was going to give up on Russell Wilson after one game. I understand both sides of the coin, and I've been saying this a lot here too, that I think that Russell Wilson is absolutely ready to lead the New York Giants, but that does not mean that Jackson Dart is not ready to play right now. So I support both sides of the coin on that, and I know a lot of people don't like to see a content creator like myself, sitting on the middle of the fence like a bird and just watching, right? But that's how I truly view it. Like, Russell Wilson has the experience, the leadership. He's got the resume in the NFL. And I think Jackson Dart has a lot of things going for him as well, too, like the youth, the mobility, the moxie from the position, right? Just the not being wet yet behind or being wet behind the ears, right? It's like you come into the league and it's like there is no, like, shakiness in your confidence. You're ready to go. So I do feel that Jackson Dart's still ready to go. One thing that bothered me in this game, though, we were hearing a lot of rumors and a lot of stuff coming out of the New York Giants facilities about they're experimenting with packages with Jackson Dart. I don't like that information leaks early before the games, right? We're talking about entering week 1 against the Washington Commanders. The Commanders even went up there and Dan Quinn said at the podium that they had planned to see Jackson Dart get out there and have a few packages. Why are we telling the opposing defenses what we're going to do before the game approaches? Just something I just completely did not like. And they did the same thing with Deontay Banks on 3rd down. Like, why are we telling teams that, oh, yeah, we're going to have Cordell Flott out there for 1st and 2nd down, and then on 3rd down, we're going to have Deontay Banks out there? All that does is make things a little bit easier for us to be game planned against. But offensively in this game, none of that mattered. But 2.57 time to throw in this game, 2.71 last week. I'm sure that that's a head scratcher for a lot of people, but that goes to show you that what a decisive quarterback can do for your team. And the offensive line reaped the reward in this game. Like, Russell Wilson was getting that ball out of his hands so fast in this game and so accurate, being so decisive that in return, and not to take anything away from this offensive line, they played fantastic. But when you got one hand washing the other like that, that is a recipe for success. And we saw that in this game. Unfortunately, the Giants just couldn't come out with the victory. Now, Russell Wilson against the blitz had a 100% completion percentage. He was 6 of 6 versus the blitz. When he was kept clean in this game, most importantly, he was 27 of 34 for 398 yards, 2 touchdowns. And his time to throw when he was kept clean was even shorter than his time to throw on the day. It went from 2.57 seconds down to 2.36 seconds when he was kept clean. His quarterback rating when kept clean was 135 flat. I mean, Russell Wilson was absolutely just out here balling on Sunday, and he even averaged 7.7 yards per carry as a runner. I tweeted this out middle of the game. I mean, maybe end of the third, beginning of the fourth quarter. I said today is the first day that I have seen Brian Daboll's offense operate like it did in Buffalo with Josh Allen. Tell me I'm wrong on that. I should have made that a giant overreaction, to be real. But even through some of the successful games with Daniel Jones, and even when you look at the game last year with Drew Lock against the Indianapolis Colts, how it was done was not like how Brian Daboll operated in Buffalo. It was all about yak in that game against the Colts with Drew Lock. It was Malik Neighbors catching 5-yard routes and taking them to the house 50 and 60 yards, and that was the theme of the day. In the game on Sunday, what we got was explosives down the field, and that's what we've been asking for. You know, I've been saying about how I'm sick and tired of seeing Malik Neighbors have to create explosives with the yak, only doing it with yards after the catch. You want to see Malik Neighbors be schemed up down the field and be able to create explosives when he catches the ball beyond 20 yards. And we just saw that a ton in this game. Russell Wilson was excellent in this matchup. And I really think I can't go without showing you guys all of the deep shots from Russ Wilson in this game. And let me see if I can get these uploaded. Yeah, we got these uploaded. Let's just enjoy this real quick. Russell Wilson, every one of his deep shots in this game, I'm just going to sit back. I just want to watch these with y'all. These were uploaded to the channel as well. But this was just amazing work. You know, I know a lot of people were saying that they were tired of the whole moon ball situation with Russell Wilson coming into this game. After this game, I don't think a lot of people are going to be tired with the moon ball if we can continue to get this kind of success. But these were the completions from Russell Wilson, throwing deep down the field on throws that were 20 yards or more. And let me see if I can't just get me off real quick. Yeah, I'm going to remove me so y'all can see this clear as day. Just amazing stuff from Russell Wilson, man. You got to commend that type of play from a quarterback that a lot of people wrote off after just one game of playing with the New York Giants. And, man, I just got to give Russell Wilson his absolute props on the day, man, and give him his flowers. Y'all know I like to do that with the quarterback position. And, man, just the accuracy, the way that he was throwing guys open in this game, and just, you know, a lot of the commentary being that Russell Wilson cannot throw the ball down the middle of the field. And not only did we get him throwing the ball down the middle of the field, we got him throwing the ball down the middle of the field to a wide receiver that is barely 5'8" in Wan'Dale Robinson, who had an excellent game on the day. Beautiful day from Russell Wilson. I think that if we can get asking for that level of quarterback play throughout the rest of the season is actually a little bit egregious. But if we can get anywhere near that type of quarterback play over the rest of the season, man, like the Giants are going to be in games. And although that loss to the Dallas Cowboys on Sunday, it hurt in one way, there was one portion of it that just, you know, being in the game felt great. And, you know, I convinced myself after the game, like, don't let this one ruin my week, you know, and for you guys as well, like just the way that the offense played, don't let it ruin your week. I think this is one of those weeks where you're going to see a lot of the fans across the NFL community that y'all talk to are going to be praising Russell Wilson's game. And if we can get more of that, one, it's going to keep the New York Giants in games. Two, is probably going to keep Jackson Dart on the bench for a good chunk of the season. I think a lot of that talk is going to simmer down now after this performance that we saw from Russell Wilson on Sunday. But a lot of that came with the help of his wide receivers as well. So let's talk about Malik Nabers, because Malik Nabers showed that he is absolutely one of the best wide receivers in the league on Sunday. 13 targets on the day, 9 receptions, 167 yards, 2 touchdowns. And, man, this yards per reception number is amazing to see. Do not forget that Malik Nabers last season averaged 11 yards per reception, which was less than Theo Johnson. And you see this guy come out here against the Dallas Cowboys and put up 18.6 yards per reception. He had 6 first downs on the day. And look, I put the yak number in the statistics not to bolster that number, but to show you that Malik Nabers was getting all those yards, and just 19 of the 167 yards was yak. So that just shows you the ball was getting pushed down the field. He had the one drop. It was on 4th down. I thought the throw was a little bit behind him, but that's one that you want to see one of the better wide receiver ones in this league come up with. This was Malik Nabers' 4th 100-yard game of his career, 1st of the season, and hopefully the first of many to finish out this season. I thought Malik Nabers played incredible. And, you know, after all the fiasco that we saw on the sidelines in week 1, you saw a very quiet, about his business, about the work type of version of Malik Nabers. That's what we want to see more of. And I think sometimes his passion can get the better of him. Reminds me of another superstar wide receiver that we once had here in New York as well. But really, everything started with Wan'Dale Robinson, if you ask me. Wan'Dale Robinson was the spark for the New York Giants offense on the day. 10 targets, 8 receptions, 142 yards. He had the 1 touchdown. And again, the yards per reception for Wan'Dale Robinson, this is even more impressive at 17.8 yards per reception, considering Wan'Dale Robinson was somewhere under 6 yards per last season. These are the kind of numbers that we need to see from our wide receiver core that will have somebody like me stop saying that the New York Giants need more weapons. But I do think this, with the other guys that you're seeing within the unit, I think that we all knew that Wan'Dale Robinson could be a viable option as far as one of the weapons moving forward for the Giants. This is a big game for Wan'Dale Robinson, and I've continuously said that Wan'Dale Robinson is not the kind of player that you don't draft over. But if Wan'Dale can keep putting up games like this, you're not going to have to worry about any reassurance at the slot wide receiver position. And I love the creativity from Dable in this game, moving Wan'Dale Robinson around. He even found ways to get Wan'Dale Robinson the ball down the field when Wan'Dale would start the play lined up on the outside with Malik Nabers in the slot. Just a great game from Wan'Dale Robinson. This was his second 100-yard game of his career. 23 of the 41 targets on Sunday went to Malik Nabers and Wan'Dale Robinson. And I told y'all on the last preview show that they had about 50% of the target share in week 1 against Washington. And I know a lot of people were complaining about that. They want to see the ball spread out through the offense a little bit more. But for me, I'm okay with my top 2 wide receivers. And I said this last week as well, getting the bulk of the targets and taking up 50% of the targets and then allowing the other 50 to be spread out with the other pass catchers on the team. But there is a deficiency still here at wide receiver 3 now, because I think Wan'Dale Robinson, after 2 weeks now, has solidified who is wide receiver 2 on this team. You had Darius Slayton get 2 receptions in this game. He did have the one nice deep shot down the right sideline. And what I loved about that route from Darius Slayton was, although it was a go ball, kind of like a fade route on the outside, he released to the inside and then bent the route back out towards the sidelines. And you don't see big plays happen like that a ton. It was a good route from Darius Slayton, but we want to see Darius Slayton ramp up the productivity. Again, another game from Jalen Hyatt where he didn't get a single snap, but loved what I saw from Wan'Dale Robinson. And I'll tell you all this, where I was completely wrong on Wan'Dale Robinson going into the year. A lot of people telling me, listen, Wan'Dale Robinson has the capability to be able to stretch the field. I didn't believe it. I said, I'll believe it when I see it. We saw it on Sunday. Got to believe it now. It was great to see Wan'Dale Robinson stretching the middle of the field, most importantly. I thought that was amazing from Wan'Dale Robinson. So you got to give him his props. And hopefully Wan'Dale Robinson can go into this week 3 matchup against the Chiefs and continue to have that similar type of success down the field, most importantly, because that will just make Wan'Dale Robinson a much more well-rounded receiver if defenses know that he can be a threat down the middle of the field. Wan'Dale was kind of playing the role of what we would imagine from a tight end, right? Running those seams, running those routes, going up against 2 safeties high, spread out in cover 2. You take the middle of the field. Wan'Dale Robinson really, supplemented for the lack of productivity there. I can't go without talking about Theo Johnson, another guy that was under the microscope, especially my microscope going into week 2. I've been calling for Daniel Bellinger to get more snaps. He has more solid hands. We did see that Theo Johnson had, I believe, 4 receptions on the day here against the Dallas Cowboys, and I didn't see any drops on the day. I think he caught all 4 of his targets. I believe it was 4 targets on the day. So it's good to see him bounce back, get back into that momentum that we know that Theo Johnson is capable of. The hands, one good game doesn't necessarily remove my thoughts about his, just not securing the ball in general. So we'll have to see if Theo Johnson can build upon this a little bit more. But I do think when you look at the wide receivers, 3 through 4, 3 through 5, 3 through 6 even, just need a little bit more help there. And we're already a little bit too late in the season, sitting at 0-2, to really try to go out there and acquire a wide receiver via free agency. We had some ideas of like maybe a Gabe Davis before he was signed, maybe an Odell Beckham. We were thinking guys like Keenan Allen, Amari Cooper before he retired. But I think the New York Giants are really just going to have to just really tough this one out. They did bring in Xavier Gibson, who was cut by the New York Jets, just a couple of days ago and whatnot. And I like Xavier Gibson, but he is known to have a little bit of the dropsies himself as well. But we'll see. I thought this was a really good performance by the New York Giants. Offensively, you can't ask for more. You scored 37 points in a loss. But what did I tell you guys in the preview? Now, I was wrong on how many points the New York Giants were going to score. I thought it was going to be a blowout. I thought the Dallas Cowboys were going to score 34 points, I believe it was, or 37. The New York Giants definitely kept pace. But I've been saying that the Dallas Cowboys are going to operate a lot like the 2024 Washington Commanders, where you're going to see this every now and again. I made a comparison to the Cincinnati Bengals game with the Washington Commanders last year, where they ended up scoring over 30 points. The Bengals did, but ended up losing that game. So I look at the Dallas Cowboys offense. They're functioning very similar. We saw George Pickens kind of get back on track in this game a little bit as well and starting to show you the capability that he has. He was the go-to guy late in that game in the fourth quarter and in overtime, drawing pass interference calls and making plays down the field as well. But that defense for the Dallas Cowboys definitely has some stuff to iron out if they want to try to compete for that second place spot in the NFC East. Like I've been saying, they are going to compete. But that offense definitely moving. Giants defense did a good job on the first 2 drives of the day. But outside of that, the New York Giants defense was absolutely a liability. And I don't want to let the cat out the bag, but we are going to be talking about Shane Bowen a little bit when we get to the Giant overreactions on the day. So just wanted to kind of recap the game a little bit, give y'all my perspective on it. We're going to tap in with the chat here, starting with the Super Chats first, and then we'll go off into a couple of Giant overreactions and try to get y'all up out of here in a reasonable time. We'll see. We shall see how it goes. And we got this is a motherfucking Super Chat right here. Shout out to my dog, B-Rog, one time in the building with the $50 Super Chat, man, to start off the day. That is big time right there. Shout out my dog one time. He said, a Giant identity has always equated to an aggressive defense. How can Shane Bowen call a defense that plays Dallas receivers 10 to 12 yards off the ball with 15 seconds left in the game? A Bowen defense equates to neither of these principles. This is a great point that didn't necessarily deserve to be a $50 great point. This is a fantastic point. You could have just said this in the chat because this is definitely a gem right here, B-Rog. Now, this is what I'll say. Situational awareness is so important, especially on the professional level of football, right? You get to high school and whatnot, you might be able to get away with a couple of wrong decisions and the teams don't capitalize on those wrong decisions. But in the NFL, teams are going to capitalize on that, right? And the 2 biggest bonehead decisions of the day for me was the going for it on the 4th down and the way that Shane Bowen played defense at the end of that game. My girl came down here. I told this story on Bleacher Report when we did the immediate recap. We make the field goal. My girl comes down here. She's like, yo, the animals, the cats up there, they're getting scared. I'm losing my shit up there. It's I'm excited, okay? We just scored a touchdown. Like, she's asking me for, like, reassurance, like, is it over? And I'm like, it's basically over, right? 20 seconds left in the game is basically over. And then it hit me. I was kind of like, but they do have a really good kicker, okay? Knowing that they got Brandon Aubrey over there kicking field goals for the Dallas Cowboys, who has the highest percentage of 50-plus yard field goals since he's been in the NFL, this is something that you need to have an analytic guy on the sidelines paying attention to this stuff, saying, look, man, this dude can make a kick from 60. I think his career long is 64 or 65 yards. But we've seen this dude booting kicks for a long time. There's no way the Giants should have went out there and played soft zone defense at the end of this game. And here's the thing. Once the Cowboys got in the field goal range, you knew that game was either going to overtime, and if it went to overtime, probably wasn't going to favor us because most of the momentum late in that game, I thought, was in the favor of the Dallas Cowboys. Outside of the fourth down, big-time throw from Russell Wilson and Malik Neighbors on the touchdown because I thought the game was basically over when the Dallas Cowboys scored. I'm like, man, are the Giants really going to go down here, drive the field, and score a touchdown? We were down by 4 at that point. You cannot afford to be playing that far off the ball that late in a game against specifically the Dallas Cowboys. Maybe against some other teams, and I know a lot of people are saying, well, why is he leaving the middle of the field open? And that part I did not have as much beef with because the Dallas Cowboys, towards the end of that game, did not have no timeouts. So you kind of want to get them in the middle of the field so you can make the tackle, maybe lay on a couple of bodies. Dak can't get up to the line to spike the ball. You really just needed about 2 or 3 stops, and the Giants just couldn't get it. But definitely one of those boneheaded mistakes that when they go back and they look at the tape, they're going to be looking at that, and a lot of people are going to be, kind of side-eyeing Shane Bowen like, well, why the fuck were we sitting 10 to 12 yards off the ball? Definitely didn't make no sense, and I think just about every New York Giants fan realized it right off the bat. But good point here, B-Rog. Man, appreciate you, my dog, helping us raise the bar over here on Authentic and the Beer. Big salute to my dog, B-Rog, one time in the building. And I'm going to still get back to you about that ticket situation, too. I got the email. I'm trying to make some things work. So we can make that San Francisco 49ers game work. That'd be real dope. Shout out my dog. All right, we got Charlie Hefter in the building one time with the $4.99 super chat. Definitely appreciate you, dog, helping us raise the bar. He said, why don't we give our number 3 pick any run on the outside? I'm so tired of watching him lined up in the middle. He's a game wrecker. Let him be one. Simple answer here is that the New York Giants got too many cooks in that kitchen, right? You got Brian Burns. You got Kayvon Thibodeau. You even got Chauncey Golston, who's a guy that can rush the quarterback from the outside as well. And it just, presents a difficulty of getting all these guys on the field at the same time. And more importantly, just getting Abdul Carter on the field in general. I think the snaps didn't ramp up that much this week. I didn't get a chance to look at it, but I thought I saw something floating around on social media. So it's unfortunate, one guy is going to have to sit on the bench or take the back seat if we do have Abdul Carter in the game rushing off the edge. But I think that's fine. Like a nice rotation of edge rushers shouldn't be a problem, but it seems to be a problem for Shane Bowen right now. And I've always questioned the personnel, and the match with Shane Bowen as a defensive coordinator because when he was in Tennessee, they dealt with a lot of big bodies up front. And I think Simmons actually just got a contract extension over there as well. But we are dealing with more like speed off the edge, and it is a different style. And I also thought that Shane Bowen relying on his front four to get after the quarterback late in this game, just, once it's not working that great, start sending some extra defenders, man. And I think that's why a lot of us on this Monday morning playing Monday morning quarterback or defensive coordinator or linebacker here are really, looking at Wink Martindale and going, man, we truly do miss a little bit of Wink Martindale's vibes here with the New York Giants. I see my dog Monique is in the building representing those Dallas Cowboys. Big win for y'all. I think you sent me a little similar little emoji like this. You sent me like 3 emojis last night when y'all got the dub. Listen, I'll say this to you, Mo. That game was more important for y'all than it was for us. We can go through this season, approaching it as if it's a beta kind of season for the New York Giants getting ready for 2026. But had y'all have lost that game to the New York Giants, I think it would have derailed your whole entire season. You walk away with a victory like that, a 3-point victory when a team scores 37 points, you go back to the drawing board getting ready for week 3, and you can consider yourself extremely fortunate for walking out of Dallas in that matchup against the Giants with a victory. But nonetheless, you win the games, you win the game. That's really what it is. So I can't throw any shade at Monique on this Monday afternoon here. Good victory for you guys. I think it's going to definitely launch pad the Dallas Cowboys in the right direction for the remainder of the season here. All right, let me catch up because I'm way back on the chat right now. And let me just see like the last 20 or something like that, see what y'all are talking here. Let's see. All right, we'll start with Miz here. Shout out my dog, Miz. He says, I disagree. You can ask early in the game, or I guess he's saying early in the game you can kick the field goal, bro. Take the points. Okay, so he's disagreeing with somebody else in the chat because that's my thinking on it too. You definitely got to take the field goal there. He says, definitely can't be good when your cornerbacks play 12 yards off the line of scrimmage. That's playing scared. Most definitely. No Mets, no Nets. No Jet says take the points. Yeah, I think most of us were in agreement on this, that take the points. I saw a few people saying like, nah, I like the call there going for the 4th down, but for me at that point in the game, I just didn't like it. Let me see. Patrick Grove says Shane Bowen is the fucking problem. I think he is the problem now. But I also think that there is a little bit of a personnel deficiency And I also think that this defense is a little bit overhyped. It's like you look back at last year's defense that really was not that great, and granted it was under Shane Bowen, but you've really just added Abdul Carter, Javon Holland, and Paulson Adebo. You've maybe upgraded cornerback. You've maybe upgraded over Deonte Banks, I'll call it, because he was cornerback 1 last year to start the year. But I think that the expectation for this defense was just a little bit too high. We got to keep building from a depth standpoint, especially. You got to find a way to bring in more bodies, especially on that interior defensive line as well. But, yeah, can't give no pushback to Patrick Grove there. I mean, Shane Bowen has definitely been the problem for the New York Giants through the first 2 weeks of the 2025 season, and last year was definitely a bit of a problem as well. DeIlla says, I don't know what firing Bowen is really going to accomplish. The linebacker unit is completely depleted, and it's going to limit the things you can scheme up, or that you can scheme up, regardless of who the coordinator is. That's true. And, a lot of people are asking me if we should fire Shane Bowen right now. And I was like, I don't know, man. Like, you have to consider that if you, bring in a new defensive coordinator, it'll likely be hiring within. And then at the end of the year, trying to fill that position again. Man, I just wish we would have got Denard Wilson as our defensive coordinator. I think that these problems definitely would not be present in the New York Giants locker room right now. So it's really unfortunate. Let me see. Andrew Adams says, I'm out on this coaching staff. We are not a disciplined football team. We cannot win close games. That is all coaching. Put your team in a position to win games instead of trying to not lose games. Yeah, that's very true, man. And you've seen it. They're coaching with a very fearful style, and in return, that's causing some issues late in these games. And it's definitely been a problem with the New York Giants over the past couple of years. That loss on Sunday reminded me of like a Joe Judge loss, like game-winning field goal. I remember when Graham Gano beat us when he was the kicker in Carolina, and that same year, I believe the Dallas Cowboys beat us on a late 50-plus yard field goal as well. And those kind of losses just remind me of that era, man. But at least the New York Giants are scoring points. I'm definitely happy about that. Blur says, got to fire Shane Bowen. Miz says Shane Bowen is ass and he's scared. Yeah, no pushback from me on none of this stuff. B-Dog said we should have won it. We should have won. It was at least a good game. Played a lot better than week 1. Yeah, offensively especially. Defensively, not so much. But this is why when people were saying, the defense played well against Washington in week 1, I was like, pump the brakes, man. That was not a good performance. And a lot of the reasoning why the Giants were in that game in week 1 had to do with Washington shooting themselves in the foot, not because the New York Giants were out there actually playing really good defense. I see real people is in the building. What's going on, fam? The Hot Nickel says, why did Bowen get to come back? We already knew he was doo-doo. That's true. Maybe no other options, really no other options. And also the whole entire coaching staff was on the hot seat exiting 2024. So I guess they figured let's bring back the whole entire staff to kind of keep the continuity going. But looks like it's been a mistake through 2 games so far. Simeon Toko says, you can blame Bowen. He had to know to not cover soft and blitz to make Dak throw quick, short passes. That's facts. B-Dog said, they won't fire. He said, they won't fire Shane Bowen. It's too late. They would have done that during the offseason. That's true. And a midseason firing, I think, will cause more problems than, more solutions for the Giants. Deedon says, even with the loss, the league saw the potential of our offense. That's very true. And I think we got another super chat here. Shout out my dog, Keith Wilson Jr. in the building one time with the $4.99 super chat. Excuse me. He said, feel lost because Dable just ignores the necessary changes at this point. Trying hard to not tell my boy John his first because Runyon is sanitation. He said, LOL, scratching my head. Yeah, man, tough one. And, some of these free agent signings that we looked at a few years ago as, maybe these are moving in the right direction are starting to look a little bit different here. And Brian Dable, just one blunder at least per game when it comes to just in-game decision-making. So definitely a great point here by Keith Wilson. We got another super chat from my dog, Zeke Anderson, in the building with the $10 super chat. He said, beloved, I am numb. This team showed no discipline. The tackling is atrocious. Bowen should not have a job today. Defense on long down and distance is just unwatchable. Bowen should not have a job. Now, y'all know I always say this up here. I don't like to call for people's jobs, but this gets no pushback from me. Shane Bowen in the first 2 weeks of the 2025 season has looked absolutely pathetic, and there's no way around that. I think that if the Washington Commanders came out there in week 1 and played the game that we all know that they are capable of playing, the Giants likely would have had 2 back-to-back performances here of absolutely terrible defense. Instead, I think a lot of people are overlooking that matchup in week 1 against the Commanders because we only held them to 20-something points. But at the end of the day, the Giants' defense was terrible. They allowed 220 rushing yards to the Washington Commanders in week 1, and then you turn around in week 2 and still allow over 135 rushing yards on the day. Just not a good look for Shane Bowen, and I'm sure a lot of fingers are being pointed at Shane Bowen today, not only from social media and from the fan base, but I think within the locker room, a lot of people are looking at it like, man, that game plan from Shane Bowen was not it. And the in-game adjustments, me and the Beard always talk about this, not only from possession to possession or quarter to quarter or half to half, man, you got to be able to make these type of decisions in game. And listen, in the third quarter, Dak Prescott and the Dallas Cowboys showed that offense started to turn things and started to get going in the right direction. You didn't see really any adjustment from Shane Bowen. And, those are the kind of things that we all look at as fireable offenses. So I'm not mad at this at all, man. And no pushback from me, Zeke. Appreciate you helping us raise the bar, my dog. Definitely goes a long way. Let's see. So Monique says that Brandon Aubrey is tied with the second longest field goal at 65 yards. Yeah, my girl was looking this up yesterday. We were talking about it, and she was just curious about some of the field goals and the longest kicks that have been made and whatnot. And we had that the rookie for the Jacksonville Jaguars in the preseason hit that 70-yarder. So as the years progress, these kickers are finding ways to be able to kick it from farther and farther and farther. And, man, I won't be surprised if somebody makes one at 70 at some point soon. Blur said, F Shane Bowen. Mr. Copate said, Bowen-headed. Nova Nebula said, I don't know why teams always go to prevent in those situations. When the fuck has it ever worked? It's worked before, but, yeah, I feel you, man. It makes me think about the Minnesota Vikings in that playoff game when they were the beneficiary of, a little bit of a prevent defense or whatever it was, and ultimately ended up advancing to the divisional round, I believe it was that year. Miz says our defense don't tackle. That's facts. Dominic Hickman says God is good, but the CB won. Trying to think what you mean here for real. I mean, I thought Paulson, the D-boy cornerback one, had a pretty decent game. There were a few little blunders there for sure, but I thought he had a decent game. Definitely a mixed bag. He had a couple of tackling issues. Kind of got trucked on one of those plays as well by the tight end. But I think when you look at the way that he's played through 2 weeks, I think it's a good future for Paulson Adebo coming up. And I like the game that I saw from Javon Holland early on. I got to go back and look at the all-22 on defense, though, today as well. Williams says, I would have rather lost bringing the house and giving up a touchdown than buy that whack field goal. Yeah, man, that's what I wanted to see there. Like, listen, I know they were scared of a big play if they would have blitzed, but, you got to just die by going for the W, not trying to play not to lose. And that's what the Giants were doing, late in that game. And I think we just gave away that game late. And we controlled it towards the end. Seemed like we had a victory right there in the grasp of our hands and just let it go. Nova Nebula says, nah, fam, the Cowboys had all 3 of their timeouts, which is what made it even worse. Did they? I thought the Cowboys didn't have maybe that was when we were getting down to overtime. I could be mistaken on that. B-Dog says, I don't know why we couldn't have gotten a better defensive coordinator before the season started. Running out of options. I told you guys, Denard Wilson was the Giants' #1 candidate. They brought him in. The job was his. It was on a plate for him. But they said, look, we want to keep some of the guys on our staff. And I heard this directly from a plug that I know is 100% accurate. There ain't no doubt about it. And I broke that news. It's the one and only story that I've ever broke. But, Denard Wilson declined the job because they didn't want to allow him to bring in his own staff. And in return, we're dealing with Shane Bowen and a bunch of scraps left over from the last regime. So, not a good look. Not a good look. I see Jameson's in the building. What's going on, J-Mo? Deaton Shelton said, Bobby O is slow as fuck. We need to replace him. Yeah, this ain't the same Bobby O, and he was much better in Wink Martindale's scheme, but also in his first year with Shane Bowen, he didn't look this bad. So he's regressing right now, and I'm not too sure what's happening with Bobby Okereke at all. A lot of people in the chat agreeing with you as well. Ricky514 is in the building, says, I thought putting Dart on the field last quarter made sense to me, making him taste the peak of NFL for a play or two. What do you think about it? I don't mind the fact he didn't throw either. I spoke about this at the top of the stream. The one part I didn't like is that there's news coming out from the New York Giants organization that we got packages for Jackson Dart, and all these teams are preparing and getting ready for it. And then on Sunday, we have packages for Jackson Dart. I don't like that. Like, just don't let the cat out the bag, Like, keep this stuff secretive so that when we get there on Sunday, teams aren't prepared for it, and it's kind of coming out of left field. But, we saw a little mixed bag. Jackson Dart did slip on that one play. He did have some open green grass, but it is what it is, man. For me, I would prefer, just disguised it a little bit better, in my opinion. But it was good to see him on the field at least. Derek Garcia Art says, yo, might be just me, but Robinson gives me prime Sterling Shepard vibes, and it's only Robinson's second year with us. That guy's a dog. So this is now Wandale has been with us a little bit longer than that, but yesterday was like peak Sterling Shepard. I totally agree with that comp. Love that right there. But Wandale was drafted in 2022, so he spent 2022, 2023, 2024, 2025 with us now. He's actually in a contract year. This is his 4th season. So he did miss the 1 year with the ACL tear. And considering, that he did have that drastic of an injury, Wandale is a guy that had an ACL injury that did not lose a step, man. It's good to see him out there, quick, elusive, great in and out of breaks, man, making plays down the field, in the middle of the field. Beautiful thing, man. It's a beautiful thing. Let's see. Adam Costa says that Brian Dable is the issue. Sunday didn't show that, I don't think. I mean, he did have the one mistake, but unless he is, influencing the prevent defense that we saw late in the game. Yeah, I mean, throughout his tenure, Brian Dable has been an issue so far, but I don't know. Today, I'm not looking at it like, damn, Brian Dable, you cost us that game. I'm not really looking at it like that today. Dominic Hickman said, did you see the energy go up when your boy Dart got in the game, though? Every time. And Dart is the future. Don't get it twisted here. Y'all know I'm a huge supporter of Jackson Dart. He was my quarterback, too, when that was not a popular thing leading up to the 2025 NFL draft. I can't wait until he plays. But if Russ is playing this well, I don't really think that there's a point to have Jackson Dart on the field. But I will say this. The way that they ran the first, I believe it was like a bit of a pistol formation with Russell Wilson and had him keep the ball and then tried the same play with a different option on it with Jackson Dart. I did like that. I thought that was really creative by Brian Dable, and I thought it was just a really creative, a bit of a creative game for Brian Dable, considering how when you look at the week 1 matchup where Brian Dable just looked like he was still in preseason mode, seeing some of the route concepts, in this game against the Cowboys, I liked what I saw. I even saw them run a similar concept of what I asked for, even though it was in a different personnel. So I'd put up a quick film Friday the other day, breaking down some of the concepts from the Green Bay Packers and the way that they utilize 12 and 13 personnel. And for those of y'all that don't know, 12 personnel has 1 running back, 2 tight ends on the field. 13 has 1 running back, 3 tight ends on the field. And the Green Bay Packers and Matt LaFleur found ways to create and generate explosive plays out of 13 personnel. I saw Brian Dable running a few similar route concepts, but he didn't do it out of 12 or 13 personnel to my recollection. Got to go back and check it out and really, do more of a deep dive on the tape. I briefly put together some compilations this morning and whatnot. But I saw a lot of creativity and like what I saw out of Brian Dable on Sunday. You just got to build upon that and just try to get better. And teams now know that we're going to be throwing the ball down the field. So these next couple of games are going to be interesting. I like this right here. DeMario Montague says, get Antonio Pierce. I like this right here. A lot of people don't like Antonio Pierce, thought he was a shitty head coach, and the results kind of support that. But early candidate right now, I'm not too mad at that. Not too mad at that. No Mets, no Nets, no Jets said, who's McCarthy? Mike? Hell no. I guess somebody maybe suggested bringing in Mike McCarthy as the next head coach. I would have liked that move during the time when we hired Joe Judge. Instead, the Dallas Cowboys hired him. But one thing I don't do, right? I saw a lot of people doing this with Bill Belichick. Like, hell no, fuck no. It can't bring in no goddamn Bill Belichick and all this. And if you're a coach and you're that decorated, the Giants, if they do fire Brian Dable and move on, they got to go with an experienced head coach. And listen, I'm going to take one of these experienced coaches over one of the inexperienced coaches. Mike McCarthy has one of the highest winning percentages in Dallas Cowboys history. He won games. The problem over there was couldn't win in the playoffs. I don't know how much of that has to do with the personnel and, most importantly, Dak Prescott. But Mike McCarthy is not somebody I just frown upon and just kind of dismiss and shun. He's not somebody that would be at the top of my list as far as hiring a head coach coming into 2026, if that was the case. But Mike McCarthy has shown that he is a good coach in this league. I will say that. Genesis SX Bez says, Dable don't want a defensive coordinator that's going to bump heads with him. That's why we don't have a good DC. Not mad at that take right there at all. Dable does seem like a bit of a control freak a little bit. That's very true. My dog Gregory is in the building representing those Dallas Cowboys. And boy, does Gregory support us and all the New York Giants nation over here. He's definitely a part of the fam. We could say that Gregory's welcome to the Giants cookout for sure. Definitely a great game yesterday, man. That was a good one for you guys to sneak a victory out of, man. Congratulations on that. That's a big-time win right there for you guys. Adam Costa says, this reminds me of the Pat Shurmur era when they score points and then give up late field goals. Jake Elliott, 61-yarder. Maybe that's the season I was thinking about. I related it back to Joe Judge, but I think you more spot on here. It might be during the Pat Shurmur era for sure. Ben Ayers says the Eagles will run it back, division champs. The streak will end. It's looking like that right now. It's definitely looking like that right now. And I picked the Philadelphia Eagles to win the division with the Commanders finishing in second place. But when I saw the Dallas Cowboys offense on Thursday night against the Eagles in the opener, I was like, man, maybe these Dallas Cowboys could give a run for that second place spot. So we'll see. Terry McLaurin with the Washington Commanders, it really hasn't gotten clicking yet. And obviously there's some rust there. And Deebo Samuel, definitely a great pickup. I know a lot of people are hating on that one, but he looks like wide receiver 1 so far through 2 games for the Washington Commanders. Lowe's from JC says, I think you fire Bowen and make a statement. Dable is fighting for his job. Can't have losses like this. Yeah, that's facts. That's facts, man. But I think it'll be tough. And to this point from Adam Costas, he says bringing in a defensive coordinator right now is useless. And I agree, man, because you can't start the hiring process for your true defensive coordinator moving into the future. You'd probably have to hire from within, and I think that's why it would be a irrational decision. But we'll talk about it here in the Giant Overreactions a little bit for sure. Nick P said fire Bowen and let the D-line coach run the defense. It's probably the only way it could work. You could also look at the secondary coach as well. Shout out Larry J in the building. He says Antonio Pierce is available. He's leagues better than Shane Bowen's soft zone. Well, he said he's leagues better than Shane soft zone Bowen. Yeah, I feel you. I definitely feel you, bro. I don't know, if bringing in a new scheme, new defensive coordinator mid-year makes sense, but Antonio Pierce is definitely a guy that, we should consider for sure. Mar says, I get the Bowen slander, but who was Bobby O guarding on that second and long to Ferguson? Bobby O ain't it. He's struggling, man. He's definitely struggling for sure. Let's see. I'm just kind of scrolling and trying to catch up a little bit. Ian Campbell says, normally you should feel confident with your defense on second or third and long, but it feels like a gimme no matter the team. Yeah, man, and coming out of the first week against Washington where they were shooting themselves in the foot, on first and second down and putting themselves in tough, manageable downs on second down, but Jaden Daniels still finding ways to convert and, make it a manageable third down. And the Giants just had no answer for that. And then you see them do very similar results coming back in week 2. So definitely tough. Ben Ayers says Jameis Winston to the Bengals. Definitely something to consider here. With Joe Burrow out for 3 months, man. And that's tough, man. Turf toe, 3 months. That's a tough one for Joe Burrow, man. And more reasoning to kind of upgrade that offensive line. But Joe Burrow is a guy that's known to kind of hold on to that ball and try to extend plays. And that's exactly what was happening on the play he got hurt on. Kind of sidestepped, stepped back in the pocket, U-turned again, and then ended up getting a little bit folded on there and hurt the big toe, it's looking like. So Jameis to the Bengals might be a good look. I mean, he's just sitting here being the third team quarterback for the Giants. So maybe you can get a little bit of draft capital in return, and I think that will be a good move for the Giants right now. Let's see. MJ said that Drew is a dog. We need more of them on defense. Yeah, Drew Phillips played really well, man. He had the one touchdown allowed in the red zone there, a little bit of a blunder in man-to-man coverage with a little bit of safety help over the top. But all in all, I thought he had a really good game, man. And he slammed CeeDee Lamb, and they were both going at it, and CeeDee Lamb had a good game as well. But those are things that can get back to revitalizing that in-division rivalry that the New York Giants have not had for a long time with the Dallas Cowboys. So good to see Andrew Phillips out there. Ben Ayers said, trade Banks. He needs a fresh start. I really wouldn't be too opposed to that right now either. I mean, if we could get – he's a former first-round pick, so maybe you can get something back in return for him. That's something nice. William Figueroa says, Shane Bowen prevent defense prevents us from winning. That's a bar. I might have to snatch that and put that up on my Twitter, man. I love that. Ooh, William JF77 said Rex Ryan will take the job. He's been out of football for a little bit. Simeon Toko says, good for him. Don't let them Willie Randolph a new coach. If you can't pick your own staff, screw the job. And he's talking about Denard Wilson there. That's facts right there. Nova Nebula said Wan'Dale has always had the talent and playmaking ability. He has. That's one thing for sure. The drops have been a little bit of an issue, but outside of that, Wan'Dale Robinson, a guy that, does a lot of things well, for sure. My dog, Jaji05, is in the building representing one time. He said, the fan in us simply says fire Bowen. Most players been in this scheme for 2 years. You can't just undo it and think it's problem solved. We have to adjust, maximize what our personnel does best, and ball out. Those are some really good, encouraging words right there from Jaji05. And I do definitely feel the sentiment here about firing Shane Bowen. Like, mid-season would be really tough, and I know that would make people happy. Kind of reminds me of Jason Garrett, in his final season with the New York Giants, where fans were just like, man, fire Garrett, it's all Garrett, not realizing that it was Daniel Jones, not realizing that it was the offensive line, not realizing that it was the lack of a running game, not realizing that it was the defense playing soft zone, right? And we fired Jason Garrett. And then I always forget this dude's name, man. Somebody in the chat's going to remind me, but he was the former offensive coordinator with the Cleveland Browns, and he was on the New York Giants staff, and he got promoted. I always forget this dude's name. I'm not too sure why. He's a bigger, heavier set dude, but he came in after we fired Jason Garrett, and he really had no success. And I'm sure a lot of people were thinking, like, maybe we don't want Jason Garrett back, but maybe this probably wasn't the best move here. Adam Costa says Brian Daboll can override the defensive coordinator. Absolutely. We're not sure if he's doing that when it comes to those late game situations, but he absolutely has the power to do that. He's the head coach of this team. Say Less NYC said Daboll had one mistake, but the game plan overall was great by his team. Daboll needs to help fix that defense. That's how I feel about it myself, man. I thought Daboll's game plan was amazing. Pushing the ball down the field, finding ways to create space for Malik Neighbors. That's a difficult task. And he did that with all three of the wide receivers. He did it with Darius Slayton. He did it with Wando Robinson. He even did it with Theo Johnson at the tight end position. So, love the game plan. And most of the time when you execute, people don't care what the game plan really was. Even if it was a wrong game plan, if you can find a way to execute it and score points, nobody's going to be complaining. But great point right there by Say Less NYC. We got a super chat from my dog John in the building one time. Appreciate the $10 super chat. He said a reporter asked Shane Bowen before the Dallas game, asking why limit Carter and Deck's snap count, and his answer was, I don't know, ask the position coach. He is the defensive coordinator. What the fuck? Need a change ASAP, and Banks is a walking penalty. Definitely agree with you on Deontay Banks. I'm not too sure about the firing of Shane Bowen immediately. I mean, that might cause more damage than fix anything. So I'm just not 100% sure about it. We'll see how everybody feels when we get to some of these overreactions, because y'all know Shane Bowen is absolutely going to be a topic of discussion during the overreactions. Let's see. We got another one here from B-Rog. Shout out to B-Rog for the $10 super chat one time. B-Rog says, a coordinator can take decent players and contribute to them playing great. A coordinator can also take decent players and contribute to them playing badly. Bowen does not scheme well for his players. No pushback from your boy Authentic on this one here, man. It's been a tough year and 2 games for Shane Bowen during his tenure here with the New York Giants. So I pretty much completely agree with this statement up here on the screen. Big shout out my dog B-Rog for helping us raise the bar over here. Shout out my dog Door Gunner one time in the building representing. He said, I actually wanted the Giants to win. Fuck the Dallas Cowboys, LOL. I'm with you on that, man. And if y'all don't know, Door Gunner is a Washington Commanders fan, and that their rivalry with the Dallas Cowboys is a lot more heated than ours. So I definitely can understand why Door Gunner wanted the New York Giants to win. Probably looks at the Dallas Cowboys as more of a threat to knock the Washington Commanders off of their second place spot here in the NFC East. But yeah, I wanted my Giants to win on Sunday as well, man, and unfortunately just couldn't come away with the victory. But shout out Door Gunner, man. The updates during the game were amazing. It was good talking to you during the game and whatnot, and appreciate you helping us raise the bar here, my dog. All right, let me see where we at. I'm going to just jump the chat to the top here. Shout out CP74NC. Freddie Kitchens. That was the offensive coordinator that we had moved to after we had fired Jason Garrett, and it was terrible. It was terrible. Genesis says that Wink Martindale's definitely laughing at us right now. Yeah, he definitely is, man. One game we finally get the offense going, and the defense looks like absolute dog shit. It's not a good look. Nick P said during Bowen tenure, when has he been aggressive? The defense has been on point, but he insists on playing soft, which hasn't worked. There's only one game that I can remember from last season where Shane Bowen was actually aggressive, and it was against the Cleveland Browns and Deshaun Watson, where he blitzed Deshaun Watson on 50% of the dropbacks. So that's really it. And that gave me the impression that Shane Bowen had the ability to compromise and be an aggressive defensive coordinator, could do some of those things like Wink Martindale, but unfortunately we have not seen that since. So, just unfortunate for us as fans that really want to see, an aggressive style of defense. We got one more from Brick City here I want to take. He said, unpopular opinion. I still think the Giants can win double-digit games if we just correct and tighten up on defense. I mean, we have the talent. We have a lot of football to go. This is like the one time on this channel that I'm like not mad at somebody for being a little bit more overly optimistic. And this is a good point here because like week 1, you didn't get a great defensive performance. You got a pretty bad defensive performance, but the Giants were still in the game. And then week 2, you get just all out effort from the Giants offense, right? Score 37 points and the defense can't help you out. I like this from Brick City. I really do like this optimism. I think we got about 2 to 3 more games to be optimistic like this, though. If the Giants can't find a way to beat the Kansas City Chiefs, who are another team in the NFL right now sitting at 0-2, then I think it's going to be time to start to panic as far as getting the double-digit wins. But I like the optimism, my dog. I really do. Shout out my dog, Rob. He said, looking forward to week 3 in store Giants have on Sunday night. Yeah, man, it's going to be a good one. Sunday night game against the Kansas City Chiefs, who offensively are absolutely struggling, lacking a lot of their wide receiver weapons out there with Xavier Worthy dealing with the injury, Rashee Rice dealing with the suspension, I believe it is. Yeah, it's definitely an opening here. I saw Travis Kelce playing out there, not looking like the same guy. So this is definitely a must-win again going into week 3, just like it was in week 2 against the Dallas Cowboys. Week 3 is absolutely a must-win going up against the Kansas City Chiefs. Lamar Go-G-Man said the offense will not be able to do that week to week. That's the point. I don't think you're going to need the offense to put up 37 points every week. Really, to me, that sweet spot would be right around 24 points. And listen, I think they're capable. And they did that without a running attack on Sunday. That's what's crazy about that. So I think that we go into next week with a little bit of a overemphasis on getting the ball in Cam Scadaboo's hands more. And I think he will be the lead running back for the Giants, until further notice. And if we can run the ball and support Russell Wilson, you had play action working on Sunday without the running game working. So I think the Giants can be a team that can definitely stay in the rest of these 15 games and compete for the rest of the season. We'll see. A couple of games here to get their shit right. And if they can't, you're going to have to kiss the double-digit victories goodbye for sure. Rob says, leave Bo at left tackle. He looked really good. Yeah, man. Look. Andrew Thomas is nursing a serious, serious injury. With the way that Marcus Bo played on Sunday, I think that gives you a little bit more of an avenue to be able to keep Andrew Thomas on the bench and not rush him back at all. Again, I don't think that, playing your rookie quarterback should be dependent on who is out there on the offensive line. And I do think a lot of people overreacted to the offensive line performance in week 1. You get a decisive quarterback here. I keep telling you guys, man, a decisive quarterback is an offensive lineman's best friend. When you're getting that ball out at 2.5 and when they blitz, you getting that ball out at 2.3, that's going to help out your offensive line in the long run here. DeIlla says, I'd imagine Xavier Worthy will be back this week. Yeah, that's a possibility for sure. Had the shoulder injury, I believe was when he bumped into Travis Kelce. So I'm expecting him to be back and hopefully the Giants game plan for him being out there. Patrick Grove said, they say the Chiefs will be pissed as bad. Let me see, that just jumped. Will be pissed as bad for Giants, but the Giants should be pissed off to win as well. It's a must-win, bro. Both teams 0-2. I think it's a more important game for the Kansas City Chiefs because if you fall to 0-3, you're cooked, man. It's going to be very difficult to get to the playoffs. We saw those type of vibes from the Cincinnati Bengals last year and from the Baltimore Ravens and Lamar Jackson, who started the year 0-2 as well. And, yeah, they managed to make the playoffs, but it was a tough uphill climb for them. You don't want to put yourself in that hole early on. Mar says, Tyrone Tracy really is my dude, but right now he is not that dude. Let Scat Pack be the bell cow. Yeah, I think that's the best option moving forward. Patrick Grove said, cannot believe there are only 48 likes. It's all good, man. I always encourage people, you don't have to hit that like button when you're here. Your presence here and being a part of this fan base is enough for me. But if y'all want to hit the like button, get the likes up, and get this more out in the algorithm, do your thing, man. Do your thing. But I enjoy speaking to this small corner of the internet known as the AATB community, man. So salute to y'all, but do what you do. Let's see. B-Rock said he dislocated it, though. They should let Worthy sit another game. It's a possibility for sure. Rob said, love Scat's 24-yard run at the 1. Yeah, that was a big-time run. Great. When Cam Scadaboo gets space, he's a very effective runner. And the better the Giants' offensive line gets, the better Cam Scadaboo will get. B-Dog says, Wandale, Tracy, and Theo were my breakout candidates this season. Good pickup, man. I mean, Wandale, with that game, you hope he can continue to build on that success. But Wandale Robinson was a force on Sunday, man. That was his best game as a pro. You love to see it. You love to see it. Larry J saying, like, subscribe, and ring that bell. Yeah, keep them notifications on if you're digging the content, man. Y'all know what it is so you can know when we go live. We've been going live a ton. I definitely plan on going live a couple of days this week. I like to look at the All-22 and then kind of come back on a Tuesday or a Wednesday with a new live, do another Giant Overreaction after, post looking at the All-22. So we'll probably do one of those either tomorrow. It'll likely be on Wednesday because I actually got to I'm tracking some vocals tomorrow for a client around that time, so it'll be a little bit tough to do a Giant Overreaction around 1, so expect one on Wednesday. Nova Nebula said, call me crazy. Nova Nebula, you're crazy. He said, but I still want to see Singletary more. Even in the limited carries he's gotten, he's still always getting 5+ yards. I'm not too mad at that. That Singletary got the start in this game, with Tyrone Tracy kind of in the doghouse. So I'm not too mad at that. They can still kind of operate running back by committee, but I think that Cam Scatterbo deserves to have the most carries when all said and done. MJ said Scat played good, but he had a big drop, and he bobbled another pass. Yeah, that bobbled one, it was like 4 by. He's like, I ain't got it, and finally caught the ball. It's good to see him secure it, but had he have caught it on the first grasp, he could have got some more yards, that's for sure. Phase 114 says, can you see Scat as an every down type back, or would he be better for certain situations? Let's wait till we get to the Giant Overreaction, but to kind of just answer this a little bit here, possible. I'll give you a one-word answer. Possible is what I'll say. Shout out Darnell D one time with the $4.99 super chat, man. Big salute to my dog for helping us raise the bar over here on Authentic in the Beard. He said the Giants have had discipline issues with penalties during Dable's whole tenure. Losing 200+ yards and penalties is insane. That's a fact, man. That is a fact. It's inexcusable, man. Inexcusable. And Dallas was damn near just as bad. I mean, they had a shit ton of penalties themselves, but some of this is execution. Some of this is on the coaches. I mean, James Hudson had 4 penalties on his own. So that definitely hurts. You got to find a way to iron this out and be more disciplined. Maybe this kind of calls towards the complexity of the offense as well. But one thing to hang our hats on, just one penalty on the wide receiver core. I love that. That stood out to me. Those pre-snap penalties, illegal procedures, illegal formation, false starts, shit like that. I hate seeing that from our wide receiver core. And only have one penalty, I think it was on Darius Slayton. That's a good look. Let's see. I saw a couple of good ones up here. So no Mets, no Nets, and big shout out to Darnell D, man. We appreciate you supporting the channel, my dog. The Hot Nichols is in the building, says, loving this content. Even though we aren't where we all want to be yet, we still are able to stay loyal and have an avenue to have sane conversations. I don't know what it is about this channel that attracts just great football knowledge from the chat, man. This is a great statement up here from the Hot Nichols right here. Isn't it just great that after a loss like this, we're having a great conversation about the New York Giants? The offense moving the ball, the offensive line playing great, the quarterback position excelling, throwing the ball down the field, deep shots being completed, seeing Russell Wilson complete 7 of 11 deep shots. We have all this data to be able to talk about rather than it just being kind of like how week 1 was, at least from an offensive standpoint, where you're a field goal in the first half, a field goal in the second half. And it's all doom and gloom, right? Great point here from the Hot Nichols, man. Definitely appreciate that comment, and glad you're digging the content, man. I don't know if you're new here. I feel like I've seen the name here in the building a couple times, but we definitely appreciate your support over here. No Mets, no Nets, no Jets says, Scat is a running back 2. You're not getting pushed back from me, no Mets. You're not getting pushed back from me. And Genesis says, yeah, I think Scat is a running back 2 as well. The Illa says, I think Tracy should have had the majority of the carries. There were plays that were there, I guess. Tracy would have done more just based on the fact of him being the more explosive player. This is a good point. This makes me want to kind of rearrange my Giant Overreactions. This is a really good point. I might do that. Patrick Grove says, I really think a thoughtful defensive coordinator can be more aggressive with the players here, Bowen is too scared to make reasonable adjustments. Yeah, man. That's very true. Shout out Welvin. Welvin says, I think the offensive performance was an anomaly. Awful Cowboys defense plus Russell Wilson's desperation game. It was encouraging, I guess, but an L is an L. I'm not mad at this. Just as much as I supported the optimistic thinking, being, somebody that's thinking a little bit more pessimistic today, where most Giants fans are probably not thinking pessimistic today. They're probably thinking like, oh, our offense is finally here and it's finally arrived. I'm not too mad at this take from Welvin here. Jaji05 says, is it me or did Wandale's connection with Russell Wilson give off those Russ/Lockett connection vibes? Hope this was a sign of things to come. One of my homies, Rob, has been talking about this a lot, actually, about him being a Tyler Lockett in this offense, and I didn't think it was possible. If he can continue to stretch the field the way that he did on Sunday, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Dominic Hickman says these 9 catchable passing interference calls shouldn't be called. Or not, I guess he's saying non-catchable. I mean, I do think that if a ball gets thrown out of bounds and is way too high and it's not catchable, they won't call it. Guess it's a bit of a subjective topic, I guess. Yeah. Some of those on the Dallas Cowboys I thought were catchable passes. Let's see. MJ said, if I had a therapist, I would have to talk to her about these Giants losses. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Nova Nebula said, neighbor seems to know how to get set now. Yeah, right. Definitely had a couple of issues early on. Rob says Hudson killed 4 penalties. Would be more points. Yeah, it would have. Those first 2 drives only got 3 points out of them. It's a miracle we got 3 points out of that first drive where Hudson was, called for 4 penalties. That's for sure. Shout out to Hot Nichols for helping us raise the bar over here on Authentic and the Beer with the $1.99 super chat. He said, what are the real possibilities that we beat Kansas City and how? I think there is a real possibility we can beat them. It would offensively would have to look a good bit like what we saw on Sunday. You want to see us get the running game going. You want to see the defense show up and perform better. And you want to see Russell Wilson continue to play the way he played on Sunday. I think it's possible. I mean, considering the way that the Kansas City Chiefs have played over the first 2 weeks, the Dallas Cowboys look like a better team. It's a bit flip-flop, though, right? Like the Kansas City Chiefs, we know what their defense is capable of. Offensively, they've definitely, sputtered through the first 2 games. So I think it's a possibility. Once I dig into these numbers heavy and we get to the preview show on Thursday, we'll be doing that preview at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Make sure y'all pull up for that. Then I can possibly either convince myself one way or the other and seeing if there's a true avenue to beat the Kansas City Chiefs. I mean, this is a team that is just religiously in the Super Bowl and always in the playoffs. It's going to be a tough, tough game. Shout out to Hot Nichols for helping us raise the bar, though. Let me make sure we don't got any more of those. Yeah, got the one from Darnell, got the one from Hot Nichols. Shout out to all y'all supporting the channel. All right, so let's see. We got MJ saying he's still pessimistic about this team. I think they find ways to lose. We scored a go-ahead touchdown twice within the last 2 minutes of the game and still lost. Man, it's a good point, man. It's a good point. Love my chat, man. Love my chat. Rob says, to beat Kansas City, let me see, need to play better defense and offense, keep rolling. It could happen. I kind of feel that way right now. We'll see how things transpire. No Mets, no Nets, no Jets says Cam Scatterbo is a running back 1 on a lousy team. What are y'all seeing that makes him a running back 1? My dog, no Mets, no Nets, no Jets, wants some smoke. He definitely wants some smoke right now from the chat. I feel you, brother. I definitely feel you. So with that said, let's get off into these Giant overreactions so we can try to get y'all out of here in 2 hours. So we got 3 Giant overreactions on the day. One's going to be focused on Shane Bowen and the defense. One's going to be focused on this rushing attack. That'll include Cam Scatterbo. And one is going to be focused on this offensive line. I'm going to start with the easy one. I know we've been talking running back, but I'm going to start with the easy one, which is the offensive line talk. I think this one we can get out the way fast. I think we'll have, normally these Giant overreactions split the room. I don't think this one is going to split the room. So for those of y'all that don't know the rules of the Giant overreaction, if you're new here, what we do is we put up statements on the screen that are normally from social media. And if you think the statement on the screen is an overreaction and you do not agree with it, I want you to put an O in the chat. And you can also tell me why you don't agree with that statement. The O representing that the statement is an overreaction. If you agree with the statement on the screen, then you will be taking the under. And you can put a U in the chat to represent that you are taking the under and you agree with the statement on the screen. If you need more time, which I know that is the case in a lot of these giant overreactions, and you need to take the push, you can put a P in the chat to represent that you are taking a push. So let's get off into the first giant overreaction of the day. We're going to be talking about James Hudson here a little bit. This one comes from my dog, the real J2. He said, can we please get rid of James Hudson too? He was talking about some other players as well. And he even added the, oh my God. Okay. Now Hudson, first drive of the game. Giants stall out, end up getting a field goal, largely in part due to James Hudson. I will say 100% due to James Hudson. Hudson had 4 penalties on the first drive of the game. It's the first time in 25 whole fucking years that a player has had 4 penalties on a single drive. He had a 15-yard unnecessary roughness, followed by a 5-yard false start, followed by another 15-yard unnecessary roughness, followed by another 5-yard false start. Brian Dable said, get this guy out the fucking game. I don't know who overruled it, but James Hudson came back in the game. But on the ensuing drive, Brian Dable put his ass right on the bench. James Hudson also allowed a sack on that drive as well. Y'all, James Hudson had a PFF grade of 17.2 on the day. He played 16 snaps, allowed 1 pressure, 1 sack, and 4 penalties. Now, I can't say that this statement on the screen is an overreaction, right? And I did say that this would be a pretty easy overreaction, but at the end of the day, the Giants are really not in a position to cut James Hudson right now. He's underneath a 2-year deal worth $12 million, $6 million of the $12 million guaranteed. Man, this is the problem. Even if you decided to cut James Hudson, you'd have to give him $6 million of the $12 million contract that they signed him to over 2 years, and then you'd have to take a $6 million dead cap hit on the season. He got a $4.6 million signing bonus. The dead cap hit is $6.1 million. There's no way the Giants could cut James Hudson right now. Hate to say it. As much as I want him cut, you can't cut him. If anything, you might be able to try to find a way to restructure his deal. Right now, that is looking like a completely lost investment. Like, I don't understand how Joe Shane signed Jermaine Illuminor to a 2-year, $14 million deal, $7 million AAV, and then turned around the next season and signed James Hudson for a very similar deal. It doesn't make any sense, but unfortunately, the Giants are stuck in a hard place here when it comes to James Hudson. You're going to have to keep him on the roster, but I completely agree with the statement on the screen, man. I'm taking the U all day long. I'm taking the under on this one. And it's just a difficult situation that, you know, you really got to point the finger at Joe Shane as to why this happened. Let me see what the chat is talking about. We'll kind of just fly through this and we'll just get a couple of these. I see Janiel Garcia's taking the under. Simeon Toko said, I'm sure Joe Shane knew what he was doing when he signed Hudson. I'm pretty sure you want to take the under on this one and don't think this is an overreaction. Problem said, not ready for the big league. He's taking the under as well. We got a bunch of unders. Operation Blues taking the under. Once we put in Marcus Bowe, there was a period where I didn't even think of the O-line. I know, ain't that right? That's so true, man. That's so true. No Mets, no Nets, no Jets says he's taking the push. We may need that energy to cheerlead or spark the team. Don't put him on the field, though. That's crazy, bro. That's crazy. That is absolutely crazy. What else we got here? Say Less NYC said James Hudson can play tackle, but he needs to control his emotions. Not on my team. Not on my team. MJ said that was the worst drive I've ever seen from an offensive lineman. I think I'll always remember that drive because of him. Me too. You know, that is a human being letting his emotions get the best of him. I've never seen that from an offensive lineman. Like, that reminded me of Myles Garrett. Was that Myles Garrett? Was it Myles Garrett that grabbed Mason Rudolph's helmet and tried to bash his skull in with the helmet. That's what it reminded me of, that situation. You know, just like a guy you see him losing his cool on one play. Then he loses his cool on the next play. Then he loses his cool on the next play. And just costing the New York Giants yards after yards after yards after yards. And really the big reason why we couldn't get into the end zone and score 7 there. Just a terrible outing by him. He wouldn't see the field for the rest of the year if it was up to me. Larry J said, well, now we know why they didn't pay Barkley $12 million. They needed that money for James Hudson. Alvaro says he's taking the under. Send him to Abu Dhabi. Damn. Patrick Grove said, I believe he can rehab his play. Hey, respect to you for that because I don't see it happening. Deaton said Jerome Patterson can play tackle for all I care. Hudson needs to be cut. Ugh. It's been an ugly couple of games for him. David says it's worth paying him that money just to send that message. I feel you, bro. Monique says allowing him to come back in was crazy. Yeah, and then Brian Dable was like, nah, I'm not having none of that. He's not coming back in the game. 16 total snaps, and then he was out of there. I got a cat hair like lingering right here, man. Shout out to Paul's one time. MJ said, whose idea was it to say, let's sign James Hudson as our first move of the offseason? Likely Joe Shane, man. Terrible move. Gregory said, I feel the same way about Steele on Dallas. I mean, Terrence Steele, though, like he's definitely been salvageable, man. Like James Hudson has been absolutely terrible, man. Like absolutely terrible. Kareem E said he's taking the under, but they won't because of the money. That's a fact. JD Realty YT says overreaction. Hudson has a bit of an inability to control his emotions, and it is costing the team. Bro got to go. So he agrees with it. He's actually taking the under on this one. Simeon said I was being sarcastic. Danny said after the interaction on the second half opening drive by Dallas, the Giants needed to be happy getting 3 points and not going on 4th down and coming out from an interception with 0 points. Yeah, agreed. We talked about that a bit earlier as well. Let me see. We got a U from my dog Amrit. We got a U from William. He said, I'd rather see Neal at tackle. Damn, that's crazy right there. Mars says he's not that bad of a player. He had a bad day. And Mars saying it's an overreaction. Respect that opinion. I don't agree with it, but I respect that opinion. MJ said Bo is going to be a very good draft pick. As a rookie in his first game at left tackle, he looked great. And that's a tough position to play. And he was thrown out there to the Wolves and did a really good job. Jaji05 said he's taking the under. His attitude and gameplay is detrimental to the team. Bad play is like a one bad apple. He's shown to be a liability in games and even practice. He devalues across the board. Got to cut bait. Yeah, agree. And we saw this behavior in practice. That's why I can't say it's just one bad day, right? Like, this dude was doing this same stuff to his teammates. Terrible day. Terrible day for James Hudson for the New York Giants. Nova's confirming it was Myles Garrett. Yeah, I'm thinking about that scenario, and I'm like, is Myles Garrett like that unprofessional? And yeah, that was him. That was definitely him. The Illa said Hudson to the Hudson. He's talking about Hudson River. David said Hudson caused a loss of yards on 25% of his plays. Francis Moran said it's too early to tell, but has Kafka play calling helped? On Sunday it did. Absolutely. Rob says never want to see Hudson on the line. Dump him way on the bench. I agree with you on that. JD said, can we talk about the player where 51-5 and 0 closed in on Dak, or can we talk about the play is what he means? Shit was quick and terrifying. Yeah, man. Those dudes know how to get after the quarterback. That's one thing that I do not question on this roster is the defensive line getting to the quarterback and knowing we got the right dogs up there. And also, I don't question the wide receiver 1 position for the Giants either. Stephen R. said, I had to go to bed early yesterday. Oh, I'm joking. He said, ate dinner at 5, went to bed at 7 p.m. 20 seconds to defend and win the game. Defense played prevent. It was terrible, bro. It was terrible. Nick P said he's taking the under. Adam taking the under. He said he was bad with the Browns. He was. Brother L said, Hudson is my favorite player on the Giants. And Brother L is not a Giants fan. Nick P said JMS can find the bench too. Agree with you on that. Yeah, so most people, pretty much in agreement on this one. A lesson learned said, hey, big dog, hear me out. What do you think about trading for Tyreek Hill? Trading for him should definitely help the defense out by helping us score a lot of points. We talked about this on the last Giant Overreaction. I'm all for it, but Miami would be ridiculous if they wanted to trade Tyreek Hill. And he went out there and put up over 100 yards on Sunday in a loss to the New England Patriots. But Miami can't get right now. So maybe when they get to the deadline, they will be sellers. And if Tyreek Hill or Jalen Waddle, who Stephen Arce was suggesting we trade for a week ago, if any one of those wide receivers is available, I would absolutely bring them in. Patrick Grove said Hudson had the right energy. He just couldn't control it discipline-wise. Deaton Shelton said Hudson to the Hudson with the laughing emoji. Yeah, that was a good one. Yeah, so most people got this one, taking the under on this one. Francis says, what's wrong with the Giants' offensive line? Here we go again, 2026. I thought the offensive line played pretty well. Now, you still got to find ways to upgrade that interior portion of the defensive line or offensive line. You still got to draft more youth for the offensive line as well, but all in all, good day by that offensive line. The PFF grades were really good as well. Stephen R. said he's taking the under, but the slap block Bo does and the pancake block flagged for being overly aggressive. Yeah, I didn't know you couldn't do that until James Hudson got flagged for it. So I don't necessarily blame him on that first personal foul where he smacked the defender, but it is what it is. I am Jarrell said he's taking the under. I'd trade Hudson to the moon right now. Yeah, for nothing. You can have him straight up. You can straight up have him. So looks like everybody's kind of agreeing on this one. JD said, I heard the Big Blue Banner guys talking about how when a defensive coordinator is cut, the team still has to play the same scheme if it's mid-season. Thoughts? Yeah, that's facts. You can't just bring in a whole new scheme mid-season. Like, how are you going to learn the terminology, the vernacular, vocabulary, where to be, the assignments? It would just make things that much more difficult. King Brazy said, I'd rather bring back Stone Forsythe. Good point. Good point. You like that, right? You set yourself up, bro. You set yourself up, yo. That, like, if I would have said that, I know one of my homies would have said the same thing. Like, oh, you went to bed at 6? Hey, that's that good rest, though. You wake up well rested, man. Salute the good rest. All right, so let's see. I saw somebody talking about fantasy real quick. Oh, that was Cresley. Cresley said, fantasy punishment should be to buy a James Hudson jersey and wear it every game day. Now we going a little too far now, bro. We're going a little too far now. That might be a little egregious right there. Shout out C Cuts in the building said would have been such a nice dub. Wouldn't it have? Oh, man, like this Victory Monday would have been awesome. But in return, we still got to wait on our first Victory Monday of the season. So, it is what it is. MJ said, can Marcus Bo go inside when AT comes back? I think so. And Jermaine Illuminor has experience at the guard position as well. So maybe you, throw Marcus Bo out there at right tackle and then move Jermaine Illuminor to the interior portion of the offensive line. So a lot of options there as far as starters go. Joshua Neal's in the building. He said first round next draft, we either need to go corner or interior offensive line. I like that. I would throw wide receiver in the mix as well. Stephen R. said Waddle, Hyatt, or Wandale goes. Not Wandale. Not after that game, man. If Wandale continues to play like that, I'm going to stop talking about George Pickens being drafted after him. Francis Moran said apparently Hudson was terrible. Any signs of hope? Yeah, he was fucking terrible, bro. It might be the worst offensive line performance in a small sample size that I've ever seen in my entire life. There's no hope for him. Not for me. Patrick Grove said, next overreaction, please. I'm with you on that. I like that from Patrick right there. We'll get one more from a lesson learned. He said, where do you play Marcus Bo when AT comes back? Yeah, we kind of already did that. So got the answer for that. All right. Yeah, everybody knows James Hudson stunk it the fuck up, man. Got to get that guy up out of here. Next year will be when we can cut bait with him. So let's get off into this next overreaction. This one's going to be from the defensive coordinator standpoint here. Definitely looking forward to talking about this topic here. This one comes from the Entertainer talking sports one time. Big shout out to Entertainer, man, who just recently followed me back on Twitter, man. So we're on good terms again, man. I sent him the Dr. Evil. Come back home. Come back home, man. But this is what Entertainer had to say about defensive coordinator Shane Bowen. He said Patrick Graham was better. He said Wink Martindale was better. He said, hell, James Betcher was even better. I am done with Shane Bowen. He also went on to list a couple of statistics here. He said the Giants through 2 weeks rank 32nd in yards against, 32nd in rushing yards allowed, 31st in red zone defense, and have created just 1 turnover. 16 total turnovers over the 19 games that Shane Bowen has been here. Definitely not a good vibe here. I'm going to keep it real with y'all right now. I do not think that the entertainer is overreacting at all here. Anybody saying that they are done with Shane Bowen, even if I don't agree with it 100% as far as firing Shane Bowen right this second, you got to understand why fans are saying they are done with Shane Bowen. At the end of the year, I mean, you got to find a new defensive coordinator, especially if you bring in these guys back as far as Joe Shane and Brian Dable are concerned. Now, as far as the Giants go, right now the Giants are allowing 5.9 yards per carry through 2 games. That's 31st in the NFL. In 2024, they allowed 4.6 yards per carry, which was 24th in the NFL. They have allowed 177.5 rushing yards per game through 2 games, and they allowed 136.2 rushing yards per game in 2024. So let's kind of compare that to the other guys that the entertainer's talking about here. Now, Wink Martindale's rushing defense is not as good as a lot of people remembered. He was ranked 28th and 29th in his 2 seasons here with the New York Giants. In 2022, he allowed 146.3 rushing yards per game. And in 2023, he allowed 132.4 rushing yards per game. So that's not that much better than Shane Bowen. But it's about how Wink Martindale got to those numbers. He was aggressive. Now, Pat Shurmur in 2020 and in 2021 was the opposite of Wink Martindale. He was absolutely a soft zone, soft coverage type of defensive coordinator. Now, he allowed 129 rushing yards per game in 2021, which was 25th in the NFL. And for those of y'all that forgot, the New York Giants had a top 10 defense in 2020, and Patrick Graham allowed 111.4 rushing yards per game, which was 11th best in the NFL. Those are the best numbers that we have had as far as stopping the run for the New York Giants ever since we've seen, Daniel Jones even being drafted. This is since 2018. Those are the best numbers that we have seen. James Betcher, on the other hand, here allowed 113.3 rushing yards per game in 2019, which is interesting because that was good for 20th. And then in 2018, he allowed 118.6 rushing yards per game, which was good for 21st. So not a lot to go over here, y'all. Entertainer's spot on right here. And I'm taking the under on this. I completely agree with Entertainer on this take. I'll kind of browse the chat here and just kind of see what y'all are talking. The first one I see here is from Kevin the PRF. He said, overreaction. Was someone bragging about the depth and talent of the back 7 league-wise? Even your 2 defensive free agent acquisitions came from terrible teams. I'm trying to think what Kevin the PRF is even getting at right here. He says, was somebody bragging about the depth and talent of the back 7 league-wise? Now, I got to keep an eye out for maybe a correction on this, Kevin. I'm not too sure what you're trying to say here. Even your 2 defensive free agent acquisitions came from terrible teams. Does that matter? Like, when you take the best pass rusher from a bad team, does that matter? Like, I mean, the Philadelphia Eagles acquired Saquon Barkley from the New York Giants. I don't know if it really matters if you're getting players from bad teams. I don't know if that part matters, but the front half of this statement, I don't understand it. I'll keep an eye out, Kevin, and see if maybe you correct that a little bit. Dominic Hickman said he's taking the push. The middle linebackers suck. That's facts right there. Francis Moran said, happy to hear the entertainer is back in the house. Yeah, me too. I was kind of clowning him for it a little bit, laughing with him in the DMs. Lou Mateo said, since Spags, none of them stood with us 1 or 2 year stints. Yeah, okay, so he's saying, like, no one's lasted, like, more than 2 years. Yeah, Shane Bowen, 2 years now. Patrick Graham, 2 years. Betcher, 2 years. Wink Martindale, 2 years. So, yeah, good point there. Ben Harris agrees. B-Rog agrees. Said, I hate the staff. Didn't let him go in the offseason. When he was hired, I said, Shane who? I feel you. NY Giants fan 48 taking the under. J Fed said they were all trash. I want Spags back. That 1 year underneath Patrick Graham, though, man, they were top 10 in pass defense and they were top 15 in rush defense. Maybe it was a bit of a fluke. I'm not here to debate that part of it, but yeah, Spags leaps and bounds above the rest of these guys. Joshua Neal said the only way Bowen can save his job is blitz 50 to 60% in our remaining games. Our pass rush is more than good enough to make plays when pressure is on the quarterback. That's true. John said he's taking the under. You already know where I stand with him. He is only 38. He will find a new job. I'll help him. I'm a recruiter. Patrick Grove said Wink didn't have the people we have now. Great point, because when you look at it from a personnel standpoint, like Shane Bowen has the best personnel of any of these guys, but Wink Martindale had pretty good personnel. You can't forget it. Like having Xavier McKinney back there, that definitely helped. The first year having Julian Love back there with Xavier McKinney, that helped as well. But I won't disagree with you at all here. Shane Bowen has the best personnel of any of the three defensive coordinators that we just went over. Stephen R. said, my thing is Dable gushed at Bowen for run defense, yet we can't stop the run. I know, and red zone defense. Ben Ayers said Pat Graham had no pass rush, man, and still looked much better. Yeah, very soft, had no pass rush. That's very true. Let me see. Francis Moran said defense has to stop or slow down the rush. Nova Nebula said, but they're good players. Yep. Patrick Grove said Rex Ryan would sick this defense on the league like Mr. Burns releasing the hounds. LOL. I think this is Devon Peterson. He said, if it's not an individual play made by player, it's not getting done. DC isn't drawing anything up to beat the offense at any time during the game. That's very true. Stephen R. said Burns getting slander is crazy work. Only guy on the Fantastic Four that's living up to the contract. That's true, man. And last year, I was somebody that was definitely like wanting Brian Burns to raise his level of play. And he did that towards the end of the year. And going into the year, I think he's even improved even more than what we saw last year, man. Brian Burns is, yeah, that's one of them ones right now. Brian Burns is a dog on this New York Giants defense. This is Mav Prick. He said, Chiefs are going 0-3. I promise. This loss hurt, but the team is on the right track. I hope you're right, bro. I really do. Devon Peterson said, and biggest shot at Bowen is Okereke and Banks and whoever else is regressing. Yeah, that's true. These players that excelled underneath Wink Martindale are now, starting to decline under Shane Bowen. Really good point here by Devon Peterson. Say Less said Patrick Graham was very good. Yeah, for the 1 year, and then the second year he fell off. William JF77 said he's taken the under, but can be an overreaction if Bowen can find some aggression, especially after the defense makes a play on first down. Say Less NYC said, no way Spag is coming back to this mess of an organization. Yeah. Spag might get a head coaching job before he would have come back here. Dominic Hickman said, when was the last time we had a good middle linebacker put 51 at middle linebacker? He's talking about Abdul Carter. I'd say the last good middle linebacker was that quick year from Blake Martinez. Before that, it's been a while before that for sure. Kareem Yee said he's taking the under. Bowen is underutilizing the talent he has. That's true. Francis Moran says Entertainer is spot on. The defense needs a backbone. Facts. Stephen R. said Spag's defense was better because the player personnel was way better. I'm trying to think how Spag's defense was the year that he got promoted to the interim head coach that year. I think that defense was bad that year. But all in all, yeah, Spags was great in the early years and had great personnel. That's a fact. A lesson learned said, please keep Banks off the field. Yeah, looks like everybody's kind of on the same track here. Shanita Jackson's in the building, said, what were Wink's run defense stats with the Ravens versus his run defense stats when he was with the Giants? I think we could look that up real quick. That's a really good question that deserves a little bit of time here and to put it underneath the spotlight. So let's just see. Because Wink Martindale was on the staff with the Baltimore Ravens for a while, but he was only the defensive coordinator for just a couple of years. So let's look at the years where Wink Martindale was, had the defensive coordinator position on lock here. So let's see. He was the defensive coordinator with the Baltimore Ravens from 2018 to 2021. So 2018 to 2021. And it's going to take a little while here, but just bear with me, y'all. I think this is a really good statement from Shanita Jackson here that deserves the right answer. So 2018 to 2021 is when Wink was with the Baltimore Ravens here. Go here. We're checking out teamrankings.com if you guys ever need these kind of statistics in the future here. We're looking at rushing defense, and we're looking at rushing yards per game allowed. And we're going to go to 2018 for starters here. All right. So, and I have the numbers here with the Giants. So he ranked 28th and 29th with the New York Giants. And just keep the number 132 in mind. He never allowed less than 132 rushing yards per game. In Baltimore in 2018, Wink Martindale's defense allowed 83.3 rushing yards per game. That was third best in the NFL. God damn, that's really good. In 2019, they only allowed 100.6 rushing yards per game, which was seventh best in the NFL. In 2020, they allowed 101.3 rushing yards per game, which was sixth best in the NFL. And in 2021, they allowed 84.5 rushing yards per game, which was second best in the NFL. Shout out to Shanita Jackson for bringing that to our attention right there. I mean, that rush defense in Baltimore was something serious, and I'm sure the personnel absolutely aids the situation for Wink Martindale, but damn. Maybe we let go of Wink Martindale a little bit too early, and I did think that at the time. Okay, Kevin the PRF kind of tried to clean it up here. Let's see what Kevin the PRF is saying here. He says, quote unquote, league-wide, I mean, outside of biased Giant perspectives, and I saw Holland and Adebo as much as fixes to the secondary as any offensive line free agent the past 2 years has fixed your O-line. Bro, I still don't know what you're trying to say here. Like, I don't know what the point you're trying to make there is, Kevin. That's shitty. I'm going to need a whole book report from Kevin the PRF to explain what he's trying to say here, because I really don't get it. League-wide, I mean, outside of biased Giants perspectives, maybe somebody could clean that up for my dog, Kevin the PRF. Shout out my dog, but I don't know what he's trying to say there. I really don't know what he's trying to say there. Shout out my dog, H-Town TX in the building. He said, Mara, please sign the blank check for Jeff Hafley to come here and give him everything he wants, like now for next year, as he can turn the organization around. Must take points in the red zone every time. Scratching my head. This is a theme that H-Town been talking about for a couple of weeks now. And Jeff Hafley, I believe, is the Green Bay Packers defensive coordinator. And, yeah, he got them over there balling out. He is a bit of a under-the-radar kind of a name. We'll see when we get there. When we get to that hurdle, we'll cross and we'll jump over that hurdle. But Jeff Hafley at the top of the list as far as, hires for the New York Giants. I'm not too mad at that. I'm really looking for Kevin the PRF one more time to maybe try to clean that up one more time. Because Kevin, am I the only – maybe I'm struggling. Chat, y'all let me know. Am I struggling to kind of decipher what Kevin the PRF is saying? And if so, maybe somebody could clean it up for me and let me know what he's trying to say. Jaji05 says, I want to say push, but I got to say it's an overreaction for now. We all get emotional after yesterday. He has to figure out and fast how to put the guys in position to be effective. The clock is definitely ticking. I like that. I like that you taking the push on Shane Bowen here. I'm not too mad at that. I'm looking for Kevin the PRF one more time. H-Town said, no situational play calling awareness. Have to take the points every time possible. If they would have, it's a different story. Clean house. A lot of people calling for them jobs today. Patrick Grove said Parcells and Belichick knew how to utilize great potential talent in Taylor and Banks. Bowen cannot do this with that potential here today. No pushback there. Stephen R. said, why can't we fire Shane Bowen? Wouldn't Manuel be the interim defensive coordinator? He's a good coach, and him and Antonio Pierce can be the defensive coordinator, or Pierce head coach and Manuel DC. I'm not looking at Antonio Pierce as a head coach. That was a bit of a debacle with the Raiders, but it was a short stint. I mean, I guess that's the excuse we could make for it, but I'm not looking at Pierce as a head coach. MFN Juice. I wonder if this is like an acronym for something, or if this is just motherfucking juice. Because I kind of like motherfucking juice one time. Juice said the defense looks like they're not confident in what they are doing, if they even know what they are doing. That could speak volumes to the scheme as well. Let me see. J Fed said McCarthy just got ruled out versus the Bengals. Is he talking about JJ? Let me see who the Bengals' next game was, because he could be talking about JJ McCarthy if it's the Vikings. Yeah, he talking about JJ McCarthy. Listen, y'all. If you paid attention to what I was doing during draft season, you know last year with J.J. McCarthy, he's a guy that I wouldn't have taken at 6. And it's not because he was like injury prone or nothing like that. I just thought that he has a very average skill set. Like, it also wouldn't surprise me if J.J. McCarthy goes on to be a really good quarterback in this league. But I just thought the skill set, nothing really popped for J.J. McCarthy. And, I compared his first performance to the preseason performance from Shedeur Sanders. And when you look at the way that he kind of fell off in this second performance last night on primetime, it looked a lot like Shedeur, man. And I'm worried about both of those quarterbacks moving forward. I have Justin Jefferson on a couple of fantasy leagues, man. It just seems like it's a struggle to get him the ball in these games. I've been paying attention to the Vikings, and it just seems like it's a massive struggle, man. But I'm hoping the best for J.J. McCarthy. We'll see. Heck, your boy said the team is underachieving again. It points to the coaching. Offense killed us week 1, defense week 2, and now waiting for special teams to kill us in week 3. Hope I'm wrong, but don't see the Chiefs going 0-3. Yeah, I'm right there with you on that. I'm right there with you. All right, so Welvin said, I think he's saying our secondary is cheeks. I mean, I thought it was a bit of a mixed bag from the secondary. I thought in total this defense didn't play that well, but when you're seeing a lot of big plays like that down the field, it's definitely a concern. But I look at the Dallas Cowboys offense, again, I compare them to the Washington Commanders, and when you see the Commanders go out there and put up 30 on a team, I don't know if it necessarily means that the defense is cheeks. But we'll have to see. We need a larger sample size with this particular set of personnel. So we'll see. If that's what he meant there, then, hey, after 2 weeks, no pushback from me. The defense looks like cheeks, and the secondary has not looked great. H-Town said he's saying the additions to the secondary ain't do shit, just like adding to the O-line. I think the additions definitely showed out, man. Like, Paulson Adebo was making some plays in this game. He had a couple of blunders on the day as well. And Javon Holland looked good out there. Now, if we're comparing it to like Xavier McKinney, not quite there, right? Joe Shane is trying to kind of mask and make up for some of the mistakes and allowing guys like Xavier McKinney to walk in free agency. So I do see that as a little bit of an issue. But, yeah, shout out to y'all for trying to clear that up. And Kevin the PRF said, laughing my ass off. What I'm trying to say is I'm not a big believer in the Giants secondary as a unit. Now we talking English, Kevin. Like the other shit you was saying, I didn't know what the fuck you saying. He said Shane deserves as much blame instead of dumping 100% of the blame on Shane Bowen. Man, shout out my dog Kevin the PRF one time. Kevin the PRF deserves one of these right here. Shout out to my dog one time, Kevin the PRF in the building. You deserve one of those right there. God damn, you were struggling, bro. I was struggling too, but man, you were struggling, bro. English is the language we speak over here on Authentic in the Beard. Hey, big salute to my dog, Kevin the PRF. Solitary Camp says, how do y'all feel about Russ' overtime performance? A little shaky, pressing the issue. I thought that Russell Wilson also felt that, when I know about this for sure. When you climb back in the game the way that the Giants did, and you score that fourth quarter touchdown to Malik Neighbors with 20 seconds left, they probably started chilling on the sidelines, like, yeah, dog, we got this one, right? Wan'Dale Robinson even spoke about it. He was talking about, man, this should be a victory for us, and he's crossing his fingers on the sidelines. And you end up losing the game. I don't think they were prepared to go to overtime and try to finish out this game. So we'll see. We'll see how they move, going into week 3 here. Door Gunner said, think my blocking grade was as good as Hudson's. I think it was better, Door Gunner. I think it was better. Nova Nebula said, fam, Javon Holland is legitimately viewed as one of the best safeties in the league. He's not, though. Not anymore, Nova. He's not. So let's correct a couple of things here. His first 2 years in the league, he was a top 5 safety in the league. No doubt about it. His last 2 years in the league, he's definitely not viewed as a top 10 safety in the league. In fact, ESPN put out their rankings from Mike Clay, and when they put out the rankings, they had Javon Holland just outside of the top 10 as an honorable mention. And they even had Julian Love in the top 10 above Javon Holland. Ever since he had the knee injury, he actually hurt both his knees, sprained both his MCLs on the MetLife turf against the New York Jets late 2 seasons ago. And ever since that injury, he's really not gotten back to his true form. But he had a good game on Sunday. I saw a lot of articles coming out after week 1 that were like, the New York Giants paid, Javon Holland to figure out what the Miami Dolphins already knew. We'll see. Javon Holland making some plays, man. Picked up the cleat, dialed in the number, whatever the fuck he was doing. It was pretty funny. But I think Javon Holland is a guy that, is starting to get back to his playing ways. I don't think he's quite there yet, but nonetheless, a good game on Sunday. Very good game on Sunday. Francis Moran said, is it personnel or is it scheme? I don't think it's personnel, so we got to point to the scheme. Let me see. I think this is LV says he shouldn't have thrown that dumb deep ball. He panicked. I'm not going to sit up here and say he shouldn't have thrown it. You know, I did get a chance to look at the All-22, bro, and if he throws that ball out towards the sideline and puts it on this shoulder for Malik Neighbors over the left sideline, it might have been another great throw. Instead, the pressure kind of fell in his lap, and when he was throwing it, he couldn't really follow all the way through the throw. And I think that's why that pass went a little bit more to the inside than he wanted, because as soon as he threw it, he knew it was an interception. I mean, it's just safety's back there waiting on that. I believe that was Wilson back there just waiting on that one. Bad throw all in all, but I don't mind my quarterback being aggressive like that. Didn't bother me too much. Cressley said he's taking the under. A good coach elevates this team or elevates this defense. Yes, the secondary isn't great, but there are pieces all over this defense. That's true. And I think defensively, you got enough pieces to go out there and be able to play at a high level no matter what, right? Like, even if you're struggling at cornerback too, you know, having Holland, having Tyler Nubin, who also had a pretty decent game as far as stepping up, making some tackles, and then having Paulson Adebo out there on the edge, that's good enough to be able to go out there and have a nice, serviceable defense, but unable to do that so far. Francis Moran also said, why not? Bring back OBJ, but the New York Giants nowhere near winning the division. That's why I wouldn't bring him back. Sitting at 0-2, right now I don't think I'll bring back Odell Beckham Jr. You know, at the beginning of the year I would have did it. And he also said, how difficult is it? Stop the run and block out the pass. I mean, it seems to be extremely difficult now. Stephen R. said, Drew Phillips is that guy 100. Yeah, Drew Phillips plays with all the tenacity you want at that position. And, I mean, just playing well, you know, lined him up against CeeDee Lamb. That's a tough task, you know, when CeeDee's in the slot. But he had a pretty decent game, I thought. Gregory said the Cowboys' defensive secondary played way too soft against Wilson and the wide receivers. Excuse me. Yeah, that's a fact. And blown coverages late in that game, man. Just your safety's struggling in that game. Genesis said Flop played okay. Yeah, he played pretty decent. NY Giants fan 48 says, all I want is a dub against the Chiefs in our house so the fans can go wild. I agree with you, man. I thought, you know, when I heard all I want, it just took me to 2 Chainz, you know, for my birthday. Definitely thought about that. Solitary Camp said, call me crazy, but I believe we lost the game because of Russ's overtime performance. We got 2 stops in overtime. Russ fumbled and an interception. We are not winning a game with Russ at quarterback. It's just my opinion, though. It'll turn into a fact here when Russell Wilson does win a game, because I do think Russell will win at least a game with the New York Giants. I won't call you crazy, but I also can't blame Russell Wilson's overtime performance for the reason why we lost this game. The defense allowed 40 whole fucking points, man. Find me the amount of games that NFL teams have won when the opposing team scores 40 points. Can't go there. Can't go there. Kevin the PRF said, oh no, at Authentics OBJ warranty has finally expired. There isn't a better way to tell him he's cooked. I mean, I don't think that Odell Beckham, it depends what your definition is of cooked. A lot of people like to throw those words around, right? But if you're a contributor in my eyes, you're not cooked. For me, it's just the situation that the New York Giants are in. This is just like last year. I wouldn't have brought in Odell Beckham Jr. last year at the deadline. Now you're already sitting at 0-2. I don't think it makes much sense to bring in Odell Beckham. H-Town said Russ did as best as he can. Let me see. Russ did as best as can be. Down dart doesn't make that happen. Okay, so I think what he's saying here is that Russ did his best job, and being down in that situation that Russell Wilson was in, Jackson Dart won't make the things happen that Russell Wilson made happen. And I kind of got to agree, man. The pinpoint accuracy that Russell Wilson had on the deep ball throughout this game, it was kind of crazy to see, man. It was vintage Russ for sure. Junior Play says, love that Russ and Wandale are connecting and getting some weight off of Malik's shoulders. In return, it created those explosive plays down the field as well, man. I love that as well, man. It was a beautiful thing to see, man. Shout out Junior, man. That's a great point as well. Cresley said, only Giants fans will blame a quarterback who threw for 450 yards and 3 touchdowns for the loss. It's a crazy world. He said, offense needs to show they can be good consistently and beat the Chiefs. I won't call the fam crazy, right? But it is kind of crazy after Russ put up a career high in passing yards and 3 touchdowns to say he's at fault for the loss. You know, but I get it. Fans will look to those key moments in a game, and they look at if you fail in a key moment of the game, that you are at fault for the loss. I'm trying to think about who it was that said, call me crazy. It was Solitary Camp. I bet the Solitary Camp might have looked at the Washington Commanders game from week 2 in 2024, and he probably blamed Malik Neighbors for the drop on 4th down as the reason why we lost. You're not in that game without that performance from Russell Wilson. Same goes for Malik Neighbors in week 2 against Washington. You're not in that game against Washington last year without Malik Neighbors on the field. So, I've learned to, not look at a one-play situation as reasoning to why a team lost the game. Shout out my dog, B-Rog. B-Rog has been supporting this particular stream today, man. Came in with the $50 super chat. He's in here with another $10 super chat here. He said, this is the first time in a while that made me want to watch the game. Despite learning the outcome, not the score, after the game had ended, overall, I'm excited through 2 weeks. In Russ, we trust, ? We'll see next week. I think we had one poor game from Russ, one really good game from Russell Wilson. Let's see what we get here, in week 3 to kind of, split the two first performances down the middle and see what we got from there. No Mets, no Nets, no Jets. Hey, shout out B-Rock for supporting the channel too, man. Thank you. No Mets, no Nets, no Jets said, nah, Giants fans are crazy in all capital letters. He said they'll blame Russ, but overly praise Cam Scattaboo, and Cam Scat also had a crucial turnover, a turnover on downs. Ooh. No Mets, no Nets, no Jets, man. He pulled the pistols out the holster one time. He pulled a revolver out on you one time for the OGs. Wow. Good point there, man. Can't argue that. Cannot argue that. H-Town TX said Dable taking points. The game is a win, but unfortunately, dumpster juice Dable just isn't a head coach. Never has or never was. He is a glorified offensive coordinator because of alien Josh Allen and how he made himself better without Dable. That one guy, 123, says, Bad Dog said something along the lines of, if the Giants scored 30, the opposing team will score 40. If the Giants only gave up 17, the Giants will put up 10. This is the truth. Yeah, and that speaks volumes to the team just not clicking on all cylinders within one game. And we got to find a way to be able to win on all 3 phases, man. Offense, defense, special teams. And Bad Dog is spot on right there. That's a good point by Bad Dog. Ben Ayers said, no run game. Defense was on the field for 37-plus minutes. They got tired. Yeah, and I guess you could say the same about both defenses, right? Going into an overtime game, the Dallas Cowboys might have got tired too, and maybe that's why this was a boat race, barn burner type of a game. B-Rog said, it ain't about the money, buddy. I see that. I see that. B-Rog out here going like that one time, man. Shout out B-Rog, man. We appreciate you, my dog. Let's see what we got here. This one's from that one guy, 123, said, no matter what they do, they will find a way to lose. Solitary Camp said, bad ball by Russ. Dart would have had that ball for the first, I guess is what he's saying. I don't know. I know Russell Wilson had 7 of them motherfuckers, though, early on in the game. So I don't know if Jackson Dart would have did that. I don't know. It's a hypothetical situation that's trying to trump what we saw with our eyes on Sunday. Russell Wilson played a really good game. Really good game. Blur says Josh Allen became a demon when Dable left. That's not really true. I don't know if you remember it. The former Miami quarterback went to the offensive coordinator, and that was the year that Josh Allen had a bunch of turnover issues, man. A lot of turnovers in the red zone that year. And still played well, but it was what's my dog's name? He wore number 11. Dorsey. Dorsey went to the offensive coordinator. Ken Dorsey? Does that sound right? Yeah, Ken Dorsey, I believe it was. And then they ended up firing him that same year. So Josh Allen became a demon when Dable was there. 2020 and 2021, they were the third highest scoring offense in the league both years. Josh Allen was an absolute demon. Should have won a Super Bowl with Dable. William JF77 said, bro, if we bring the house, Ferguson doesn't get out to the 50-yard line to get that ball. At best, it's a hot route for a couple, and 58 is playing downhill. At best, it is a hot route. I'll give you that, but not necessarily for a couple. Like, if you catch a quick slant in stride on a hot concept and you only got man-to-man coverage on the back end, and let's say you zero blitz, that shit could be taken to the house. But I would prefer that situation, William. I like that. I like the game you dropping there for sure. Stephen R. said, should have kicked the field goal, then throw a check down to a running back that isn't a pass-catching running back. Wait, are we talking about Cam Scatterbo not being a pass-catching running back? Go look at his college stats. That's crazy talk right there. Derek Garcia Art said, didn't we win the Super Bowl with a 0-2 start? Not saying we will again with this coaching staff, but he says, but come on, where's the hope in the playoff run? All right, it's still there. It's still there. It's lingering, but I don't like to necessarily point to the anomaly as, being the albeit circumstances for the New York Giants to get to the playoffs at 0-2. It happened once. Maybe that's more of a reason why it won't happen again. I don't know. I'll wait till I see it. Next week's performance is going to be very, very critical into my thinking going into the rest of the season. C. Cut said that'd be like Dallas blaming Aubrey for the loss if he missed the overtime field goal. Yeah. It's ridiculous. I think we can get up off this one here for a second here. Let's see. We got a super chat, though, from Door Gunner. Big shout out to Door Gunner representing those Washington Commanders with the $5 super chat. He said the gift the team sent season ticket holders is a reflection of the effort ownership has put into the team. Merrill will have to upgrade fans to large sodas. Yeah, the season ticket holders gift was just that little banner that was like that big. Yeah, that's not a good look, man. Door Gunner always staying tapped in, man. I see you. I definitely see you. Always tapped in around the NFC East, man. We appreciate you helping us raise the bar over here. Ben Ayers said 2 division losses hurts. Yeah, man, that's tough. 2 division losses. No team has gotten to the Super Bowl with 2 division losses. Giants did it with 2 losses, but not 2 division losses. The Illa NYG said that whole Josh Allen became better once Dable left has always been a BS take. Josh Allen was always going to become Josh Allen regardless if Dable was there or not. Love that. Love that. We'll leave that there because that's facts right there. That's definitely facts. Definitely facts. All right, let's get off into this last Giant overreaction here. This one's going to be a short one. I definitely want to see y'all thoughts on this one. We talked about it a little bit earlier, but I think we can bring a little bit more focus to this conversation here. And let's talk about the running back situation for the New York Giants just a little bit here on this last Giant overreaction of the day. This one came from pub_enjoyer. I like that name on Twitter. And actually, I got the wrong one up there on the screen. Dang, did I mislabel that? It's the wrong one on the screen. So I might have to just tell y'all this one here real quick. Damn. It is, okay, here, no, okay, I got it. There it is. Okay, I was tripping. So this one comes from Pub Enjoyer. It is about Cam Scatterbo. And he says, dude is going to be a vegetable in a few years. 11 carries for 40 yards is not what I'd call impossible to tackle. This was a response to Dov Kleiman saying Cam Scatterbo is nearly impossible to tackle. Now, Cam Scatterbo on the day had 11 carries for 45 yards, 4.1 yards per carry, 1 touchdown, 2 receptions for 14 yards on 3 targets. He had -3 rushing yards in the Week 1 matchup against the Washington Commanders. He had a long of 24 yards. His longest run of the day was 24 yards. Now, if you take that 24-yard run and remove it, as much as I don't like to do that, Scatterbo went 10 for 21 yards, which would be 2.1 yards per carry. Now, I do have some concerns about Cam Scatterbo, and I'm glad that No Mets, No Nets, No Jets was talking about Cam Scatterbo would be a running back 1 on a terrible team, and I do 100% agree with that. Now, I got to take the push on the statement on the screen here because I'm not sure about this running style. Cam Scatterbo is taking 3 and 4 hits on a 3-yard gain, 2-yard gain. I don't know how sustainable that is going to be for the future. The other thing is that Cam Scatterbo needs like wide rushing lanes to be able to really be a successful running back in the NFL. He's not going to make nobody miss behind the line of scrimmage. So moving forward, I'm a little bit concerned about Cam Scatterbo and Tyrone Tracy and about neither of them being a long-term answer for the New York Giants. Now, it's early on, right? Even for Tyrone Tracy, it's a bit early on. But from what I've seen, both of those running backs lack explosivity. I think Tyrone Tracy has a little bit more explosive nature in his DNA. But when you look at Cam Scatterboo, it looks like he's running his hardest to try to get minimal gains. And on the big play, it was up the middle. He got a nice run, loved it. Late in the game, it was a big-time run. Offensive line did a fantastic job. But if you don't have the necessary dogs up front on the offensive line that are going to be able to consistently open up holes on this, for these running backs, I think we're going to be in trouble with this running game. Let me see what the chat is talking about here. I'm going to scroll all the way to the bottom here. And y'all, wheel them in as you want. I know that this one's going to kind of split the room. And I do think a lot more people might be leaning towards the push. But I'm not sold on Cam Scatterboo just yet, y'all. It looks cool, right? You see a guy like poof, 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 like trying to get his yards, right? It looks cool. But at the end of the day, it has not aided into a powerful rushing attack that's going to support the quarterback. We haven't seen that just yet. H-Town TX said the Giants are a terrible team. I can't disagree with you just yet. Let me take the push on the Giants being a terrible team. But look, I had them at 6 wins to start the year, so we'll see. B-Rog says he's taking the push. I need to see more. And that's about where I'm at with it. Deedon Shelton said that it's an overreaction. Cam is a rhinoceros. I don't know if it's an overreaction. I don't know, man. This playing style does not look sustainable to me. Steven R. said, huh? So all physical running backs will be a vegetable then? Steven R. Tell me the other running backs currently in the NFL right now that run with that style. I think Ramondre Stevenson is maybe a decent comparison, but Cam Scatterboo literally tries to run over everybody that gets in his way. I don't know if we have another running back that runs like this right now in the NFL, and that's what worries me. Even drafting him, that's what worried me. I wanted to get more explosive running backs out of the draft. Y'all know I was a big Brashard Smith fan, a big R.J. Harvey fan. There were a couple other dudes there. Let me think about running backs. Ollie Gordon is another guy that was drafted this year that runs with that kind of a style, but I don't know, man. He's running extremely physical. He's definitely running extremely physical. Let me see. Off-Broadway 718 says he played that Texas game with a concussion, threw up on the sidelines. Nobody made note of it. Yeah, and, when I did my Film Friday breakdown and he was shaking his head coming off the field, and then they actually took him out the game, in the comments, everybody was like, man, Cam Scatterboo always shakes his head. And I did realize that after looking at the tape that he does shake his head a lot. And people say that's just something with the helmet or something like that. But I don't know, man. I'm a little worried about him. I'm definitely a little bit worried about him. Genesis says he's taking the under and agrees with the statement on the screen. He said people in the chat think he's going to be the next Brandon Jacobs or Amon Bradshaw. He's not that explosive. Off-Broadway said, watch when he plays and he starts, quick shaking his head like trying to clear cobwebs. Yeah, he's always doing that. Lou Mateo said, super O. Cam can take the hits like Mike Allstott or a Peyton Hillis. Lou, I think you got the super overreaction right now. We can't put Cam Scatterboo in the realm of Mike Allstott as far as how he takes punishment. How many years did Mike Allstott play? Let's look that up. Let's look that one up because I know a lot of people going to want to compare him to Mike Allstott. So Mike Allstott in his career played 10 seasons. 11 seasons, actually. And let me just see how many of these were productive seasons. In his last season, holy shit, Mike Allstott's yards per carry is fucking terrible. Was it really this bad? Wow. So in his last, God damn, Mike Allstott in 3 of his last 4 seasons averaged under 3 yards per carry. In his final season in 2006, he played 16 games. He averaged 2.8 yards per carry. On 60 carries, he had 171 yards. Mike Allstott never rushed for 1,000 yards in his entire career. The closest he got was in 1999 with 949 yards. He was averaging 3.9 yards per carry. And that's why I wanted to look up his numbers. That's old shit. That like the NFL don't operate like that no more. Like you will not be a running back with 3.7 yards per carry and playing 11 seasons in the NFL. That's not going to happen. Yeah, I mean, you could look at Mike Allstott's last 4 seasons as completely irrelevant. He never rushed for over 250 yards in his last 4 seasons. He only averaged over 4 yards a carry one time in his NFL career. Shit, man. That makes me feel worse about Cam Scatterbo. I'm kind of mad Lou Mateo brought up Mike Allstott. I'm kind of mad. Christian C said John Gruden can turn his franchise around and he loves Jackson Dart. I like John Gruden. I'm a big supporter of John Gruden, man. Mr. Copate said it's an overreaction. It's the way he runs, though, that makes me nervous. Face mask too far forwards. Gonna get hurt for real fast that way. So I guess you might be agreeing with the statement on the screen, but maybe saying overreaction as well. Rob said he's taking the push. Let's see what else we got. Off Broadway 718 said Scatterbo may be done in 7 years. Let's give one of those, bro. Let's give one of those, bro. Because running with this style, man, you already know it can definitely lend towards the concussions. And you got to think, Mike Allstott played in a game or an era where the NFL was not as focused on concussions. I hate that I looked at those Mike Allstott numbers. I thought he was a more effective running back during that time. Kevin the PRF says he agrees with the statement. He's taking the under. He said, I wasn't high on Scatterbo pre-draft. He's a one-trick pony. He can run over defensive backs. He's not huge. He's not shifty. He's not fast. He just can run over smaller players in space. You're dropping some gems right there, Kevin. Dominic Hickman said he's taking a push. There's no way Scatterbo not going to make a big impact. I do think that there is a way, though, bro. The way that Scatterbo will not make a big impact is if he starts to deal with injuries and concussions. That would slow down his play. And I'm not trying to speak that into existence or nothing like that, but when you play with that style and like homie was saying, face mask up, like all those collisions right to the front of the helmet, definitely something to keep our eyes on. Stephen R. said he's taking the push because I'm pushing this out my face. So run over will make a vegetable. He's a gritty runner, nothing fancy. I mean, I think it's a little bit of just exaggeration when he's saying making him a vegetable, but he's saying that play style is not sustainable. And I don't know if it is. I'm taking the push, but I am leaning towards agreeing with the statement on the screen. C. Cuts said, how do you think the Giants offense will do the next couple of games? We'll see as we dive deeper into those matchups. But I think the Giants offense, they showed you on Sunday, they have the ability to go out there and score, and they're not a 6-point per game type of team. So keep that number in the 20s. I think we'll be okay. Mike Alexander said he's right. Cam Scatterbo is a 1 on our team. We suck. And he's talking about no Mets, no Nets, who was talking about that earlier. I think that was a good point as well. Solitary Camp said Dart opens up the running game. You seeing it with your own eyes. Yeah, Dart definitely opens up the running game. And maybe that could help out Scatterbo's duration of his career. Gregory said he's taking a push one time. He said the offensive line has everything to do with this. It does, and I think that the offensive line will have everything to do with Cam Scatterbo's success. If you can keep it where Cam Scatterbo's first initial contact happens beyond the line of scrimmage, he can be a very effective runner in this league. William JF77 said he's taking the push. He said Cam Scatterbo is Danny Whitehead 2.0. Rex Burkhead vibes, right? Off Broadway 718 said Scatterbo has a fragile noggin. He's taking the under. The Illis said that's why I've been calling Scat A.J. Dillon from the start. Good point. That's another running back that runs very similar to how Scat runs. But I want to say A.J. Dillon's a lot larger stature running back, but I'll look it up. The Illis said he's not a guy that will do well even with the minimal amount of traffic in the backfield, just like A.J. Dillon. Damn. And A.J. Dillon had some good games with the Packers. I think he's with the Philadelphia Eagles now. A.J. Dillon is 6 foot 247. Cam Scatterbo is 5'11", 216. Fuck. H-Town says, Cam been in the league 2 seconds and everyone ready to get rid of him. I don't think anybody's ready to get rid of him. I mean, listen, when you get a running back like that, you know, like no shade intended, you got to run that guy into the dirt. That's really what you got to do with running backs, especially, you know, these day 3 non-generational talents. You just get the most mileage you can out of them. I don't think we have a choice right now. We can't get rid of him. I think Cam is an effective player, but I think this is more speaking to the injury and the, you know, the future of Cam Scatterbo with the New York Giants, not necessarily trying to get rid of him. Mars said he's taking the push. He said, I need to see a game where he gets 15 or more carries. That running style wears on defenses historically. That's a good point, and I think that speaks to both sides of the coin, right? Like, we want to see Cam get over 15 to see how he operates in a game where he's the main bell cow running back as well, but also seeing how defenses can handle it. Great point by Mar right there. Kareem E said he's taking the push. My issue with Scatterbo's running style is that he runs using his head as a battering ram. Even in pass pro, he's doing that as well, so that's something to keep in mind. Janiel Garcia says he's taking the overreaction on this one. It feels like he's breaking a tackle per play. I understand the production is low, but when you look at the reps, you see someone creating yardage by himself. I am concerned for his health, though. Good way to look at that. I like that. James Williams in the building says that's our problem. These players try to look cool instead of getting the job done. I think perhaps, but who are we speaking to on that? You know, that you think is a look cool type of dude. I see a lot of guys out there that are putting their best effort forward. Malik Neighbors, Wan'Dale Robinson, Russell Wilson really don't give a shit about looking cool. Brian Burns is out there getting after it. Kayvon Thibodeau had a day with the 5 pressures in the sack. I think he's out there now, maybe in the past, trying to look cool, but as it stands today, out there trying to get busy. Same thing with Dexter Lawrence. I'm not too sure who this might lean to as far as the cool-looking thing. You know, I think about swagged out players kind of like Jackson Dart, but Jackson Dart in preseason was showing us he can ball. Ooh, good one. Say less NYC comparing him to Isaac. Is it Isaiah or Isaac? I'm mixing him up with a baseball player maybe. Isaiah Pacheco. Yeah, good comp here because he's a guy that runs straight forward, breaks tackles, doesn't have the speed, doesn't have the explosivity. Good point here. Coming off a big injury. It wasn't a concussion. I want to say it was a broken leg or something like that from last season. So that's probably the best comp we've seen. Good one right there. Nomet says, I don't think Cam can show us more. His running style does not look effective for NFL play. Excuse me. That's a good point. I mean, a lot of football left to play, though. We can't look at 2 games and say he can't show us more. So I'm looking forward to seeing him get more carries, get more attempts, more touches, see how that works out for us. JD said, to be fair, Scat Pack hasn't had as many reps to really judge his game. He's been put in limited spots to boost energy, and he's done that. Give bro a legit chance, then judge him. I think he's going to cook. That's true, and we can't forget it was a hamstring injury. I'm glad JD brought this up, which could be kind of, you know, slowing down the minimal explosivity that he has, to be honest. So that is a really good point. Off Broadway 718 said, man, I really wanted Brashard Smith too. Yeah, he was one of my favorite running backs. I knew he was going to go late, day 3 type of vibes. Explosive as all hell, man, can catch out the backfield. He would be a threat, and Kansas City Chiefs, I think, got a good player over there. And he said, that motherfucker is too fast. Yeah, he's super fast. Second fastest 40 of all the running backs at the Combine, right behind Bayshul Tootin. Detours 128 said he taking the push. H-Town, Texas said, 12 and 13 personnel is our way to run the offense. Heavy play action and runs. Love that. Francis Cooley is in the building. He said, what up, Authentic? Remember Marion Barber? Absolutely, man. Shout out Marion Barber. He was a great running back for the Dallas Cowboys for a second there, man. Salute to him. And definitely a tough running style that he had over there as well. Off Broadway 718 said, yes, he shakes his head. He's got a fragile noggin, bruh. The Illa said he's got a tick. Yeah, I think that's what it is, a little tick coming up, shaking his head. Janiel said Scatterbo says that head shake is just him making sure his head is okay after every play. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. Off Broadway said, nah, the Illa, I love you, bruh, and your content, but go back to that Texas game. That's true. That's true. Ben Harris thinks that Scadaboo is a situational running back. I don't got much pushback on there. Cressley said, I love his style of play, but the front office can't be blind to the dangers. Invest in running back next year, so if his style starts taking a toll, we will be prepared. Great point here. I feel like we still need that explosive running back that can hit a home run. Even if it's like I'm not thinking like Saquon Barkley. Even if it's like of the level of like a Kenneth Gainwell, like Tony Pollard vibe, something like that. Like, you got to be able to do that. And we don't have a guy on our team that can necessarily do that. James Williams said, Mike Allstott, hell no. Off Broadway said Allstott was big. Yeah, and looking at those numbers was disheartening, man. Like, I think this goes back to what James was saying. Like, it looks cool, like, going, you get to see the Chris Berman vibes and shit, right? But, like, you look at Mike Allstott's numbers and really only had, like, 2 true effective seasons. Stephen R. said, put a Guardian cap on Scat. I like that. Let me see. I think Mitt651 is probably behind on the stream, and he said Kevin the PRF is basically saying that Holland and Adebo are trash. Maybe talking about Abdul Carter. I ain't going that far. That's crazy. Francis Moran said, and maybe NY Giants need a running pass catcher that can catch and run for a first down. Scadaboo is supposed to be that, man. Like, he had over 500 yards receiving at Arizona State, in his last season there. He can catch the ball out of the backfield. I don't know what was going on the fourth down. The ball was a little off him, but you still got to make that catch. Say Less NYC says, Scadaboo's a baller. Give him 2 seasons to get stronger. And I will do that. I'm going to be patient for sure. A lesson learned said, I'm taking the O. When this offensive line gets settled and the weather changes, Scat is going to be big time in keeping drives going. I think he could be that too. H-Town said Cam is a beast, just haven't got enough touches. Everyone says his touches and rushing yards. Look at the whole league. Majority of the league doing the same or less, and they've been in the league and explosive. Junior Plays says it's an overreaction. If Tyrone Tracy can secure that number 1 spot and Scat can become a true red zone goal line threat, we don't have to worry about him getting yards. I like that. That's a good one right there. Francis Moran said 24 years is great, but 2.1, I guess he's talking about, he says, but 2.1 yards average is terrible. Yeah, definitely. East Coast Gridiron said, oh, you talking about Scat? Yeah, man, I think Dante had Scadaboo pretty high on his running back list. I can't remember exactly. But Scadaboo was like not even a running back that I wanted to target in the draft. I thought the fit was not right for the New York Giants. Like, Scadaboo is the kind of guy that I would pair with Saquon Barkley. Like, if I'm the Philadelphia Eagles, I would go out there and get a Cam Scadaboo, right? But I think the Giants need some explosivity in the running back unit, and we don't have it. So I was looking at more running backs that could hit the home runs when I was looking at the draft, and Scadaboo wasn't a guy that was on my radar. But when we drafted him, I was familiar with him, and I knew the productivity he had in college, so it's not like I was mad at the pick. But I kind of would have preferred to go with a wide receiver at that spot in the 3rd round for the Giants, or 4th round for the Giants. Sorry about that. Boss Les says he's taking the O on this one. I have to see improvement from the interior line first. I ain't mad at that. Kevin the PRF says, I agree. Authentic Scadaboo will survive in this league with first contact at 2nd level. Is the 90s Dallas offensive line available? Man, that Dallas Cowboys documentary is amazing, man. Like, definitely encourage all Giants fans to go watch that. There were some great moments just about us in the NFC East. And I had forgot, man, like, there was one year, I know a lot of people don't like the dark helmet from the New York Giants, but there was one year that the Giants had the dark helmet with the blue jersey, with the legacy jersey, but the NY on the helmet. And I was like, man, them joints kind of cold. I kind of liked it, but it was just one year, and they showed it on the Cowboys documentary detailing the 90s. And there was so much stuff about Michael Irvin that I did not know, man. Like, when I was a kid, injuries were not as, like, prominent. The big injury that I remember when I was a kid was Sterling Sharp, the neck injury that ended his career. But I didn't know. I must have forgot, like, Michael Irvin's career came down to a neck injury where if he would have played, he had some kind of condition after the big hit that he had that was like narrowing his spine or something like that around his neck. And that was the reason why Michael Irvin had to retire. That flew over my head back in the day, but they had some great stories about that, man. And they really blamed, maybe the main culprit of the Dallas Cowboys, like, true downfall on when Michael Irvin ended up getting caught in the hotel with the possession of narcotics and all that stuff. Like, just great stories, man. I recommend you guys, if you haven't seen it, even as Giants fans, go check it out, man. It was a great documentary. Loved it. Zani says, let's say Russ continues to play very good like he did against the Cowboys, but we continue to take L's. When does Jackson Dart start? Anytime after the Giants are eliminated officially from the playoffs would be okay for me. No Mets, no Nets, no Jets says, not ready to get rid of him. Just don't see him as a good option for running back one. That's how I'm looking at it right now too. You know, it's very similar. It's very similar. You know, you look at Tyrone Tracy as a running back who's not necessarily ground and pound, but both of those running backs get it done without explosivity, and I look at them very similar. Is Wes Steinberg in the building? Do we got Wes in the building? I would love it if Wes is in the building. Big shout out to Wes Steinberg, man, the number one troll on all of New York Giants Twitter. I'm scrolling back to see if Steinberg is in the building, man. That would be kind of cool, man. I fuck with Wes Steinberg. He's funny as hell. Let me see, though. Let me see what that statement actually said here. Scroll back down. Okay, so all right, so you've been Steinberg, say less. You've been Steinberg. So Wes Steinberg is a completely fake account where he just completely makes up shit and trolls people. And he says Bengals and Giants are in discussion over a trade for quarterback Jameis Winston. Yeah, you've been Steinberged. Shout out to Wes Steinberg. That's my dog. He be getting people, bro. He be getting people. Not to say that might not come to the light here, because some of the crazy trolling stuff that Wes Steinberg has said has definitely like came to fruition. So maybe it happens. Maybe it happens. Let's see. Just looking at some other statements here. Dante from East Coast Gridiron says, Scat reminded me of Toby Gerhart mixed with Mark Ingram. I like the comp to Mark Ingram. That is a good one. It's still not as explosive. Mark Ingram was a little more explosive. He said, I always tell people to go watch that Texas game again. He was sick and carried them. Yeah, he definitely was carrying them in that game, man. And multiple games, Cam Scatterbull was responsible for the majority of the offense. I want to say he was responsible for the entire season for like 40% of Arizona State's offense. So definitely, he's capable. It's not that he's not capable. I don't know about the pairing with Tyrone Tracy. We might have to try to, if Cam Scatterbull turns into running back one, you might have to try to address Tyrone Tracy and maybe bring in a more explosive running back. Mar says, rest in peace, Marion Barber. Absolutely. Y'all know what it is, man. Say less said Marion Barber was the start of the NFL using and abusing the running back. Good point. We got Jester in the building. I see you, fam. East Coast Gridiron said, no, Scat shakes his head because he said it's a tick from his helmets, from the helmets and the way his face feels in them. He's just readjusting. He said this back at Arizona State. That brain might be getting readjusted in that skull, my dog. We'll see, man. We'll see. Just pray that he doesn't have to deal with any concussions and that style can, be sustainable. The Illa said, I compare Scat to Dylan based off their college production and how they carried the football. Not so much based on their physical traits. Dylan had 2 seasons at Boston College over 1,500 yards. And he's a running back that it really didn't translate quite well to the NFL. But I thought he had a little bit of success early on in Green Bay, and he's a capable running back. Ray W. said he has a Brandon Jacobs mentality with a Bradshaw body. Damn. That's a motherfucking bar right there. That's a bar. So this one is a little split. It's a little split right here. A lot of people got different bags on this one. Los from JC said 0-2 in the decision. We ain't making no playoffs. Yeah, we probably aren't. Jaji05 says we will learn very soon exactly how good Scatterbull really is. This the big leagues, not college. Got to adjust and avoid direct contact. He played 2 games. Hopefully, we'll see the growth. I think that's a good place to leave it at right there. That's definitely a good place to leave it at right there, because we want to see the growth out of a young player like this. As much as I'm telling people to just tamper the expectations just a little bit, we kind of did it with Tyrone Tracy last year, looking at him like that was one of Joe Sain's draft hits after just 1 year, and now we're already looking at Tyrone Tracy as being a replaceable running back in the NFL. So got to give Cam Scatterbull his time with the New York Giants and do our due diligence. After 2 weeks, I don't think that's enough time to be able to say, hey, we need to be addressing running back already. So we'll see what it is. Chris P says, remember when Emmanuel Acho quoted something that Wes Steinberg said? Yeah, I absolutely remember that. Put it on national television, bro. Like, Come on. Got to do your research if you're Emmanuel Acho. That's definitely not a good look for him. But I've seen countless people get Steinberged on Twitter, in my chat. I've been a victim of it. I've been Steinberg. That's how I learned to figure out who Wes Steinberg actually was. I respect the trolling. I don't like trolling normally. When it comes to Steinberg, yeah, I respect the trolling. He's great at it. He's built a great following that literally just gets a kick and just gets some laughs out of what he does on Twitter. He's definitely a funny dude, but that's where we'll leave it, man. I think, these were some pretty decent Giant overreactions today. I'd say we split the room on a couple here on the day. But moving forward, as far as this Cam Scatterboo vibes, I'm rooting for Cam. I think he's a really capable running back. And I want to see him, in blue for a long time. And I think his health is extremely important. You want that to be a hit for Joe Shane because there aren't many draft picks that Joe Shane has out there that we can hang our hats on, right? So, the more the merrier for us. But that's going to do it for today's show, man. Almost 3 hours of Giant overreaction today. That just seems to be the theme over here. It's just we got short format content. We got long format content. And then we have the Giant overreaction with Authentic and the Beard, which definitely seems to go about 3 hours bare minimum normally. But salute to all of you guys for tuning in today, man, especially my dogs that were at the beginning of the stream. I saw y'all in here that went all the way through the end of this stream, man. Biceps in the chat before we get up out of here. I think there's a lot to build on from this game for the New York Giants. You got to just find a way to get it all clicking on all three phases of football. You got to get special teams aligned with the defense when you get a game like this from the offense. Most importantly, they went out there, they scored 37 points. This is something that Brian Dable can build upon. And if Brian Dable can go throughout the season, maybe not scoring 37, but just keeping the New York Giants points per game up there in that 24, 25 department, I think we'll be good to go as far as the season goes. And if anybody needs that, nobody needs it more than Brian Dable, because since he's been here outside of 2022, this offense has not operated the way that it should be operating underneath a guy who is known for his expertise in the offensive department and, with an emphasis on the quarterback position. Big shout out to my dog, Chris Peace, one time with the $1.99 super chat to end this show. He said, thank you for the therapy session, man. All day long, man. This is just as therapeutic as it is for y'all. It's just as therapeutic for me, man. And I love coming up here talking New York Giants football. It's a beautiful thing that I get to come up here and rap with y'all about my favorite football team and most of y'all's favorite football team as well. And a couple of stragglers here, that just enjoy the content, that represent the Washington Commanders, that represent the Dallas Cowboys, represent the Philadelphia Eagles. So salute to y'all, man. I definitely appreciate y'all spending y'all time with me today. And that means a lot to me. That definitely, is something that will live with me forever, that I got this many people that pull up to our chat, pull up to our show, and rock out with us over here on these Giant overreactions and on the Best Division in Football shows with the Beard. Like, it just means the world. I can't believe that we've built this community over here, and it's continually, showing its growth as we put out more content by the week. Expect a Giant overreaction on Wednesday after we get a chance to truly, truly look at the tape today. I'll try to make it at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to keep the theme, so you guys can, around lunchtime, have some content when you're at work or whatever you're doing midday. Might be a workout, might be a yoga session for some of my female, family members out there and whatnot. But that should be on Wednesday at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And then the preview for Week 3 on Thursday. Make sure y'all pull up, show out, maybe bring a friend with you. Maybe tell a homie, hey, I know about a great preview show. Maybe you got a Kansas City Chiefs fan. I know we got a bunch of Kansas City Chiefs fans out there as well. Tell them, pull up, come rock out with us. Enjoy the preview show on Thursday. That should be at about 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Sometimes in preparation for that show, we push it back a little bit so that we can get all the necessary data. It will absolutely not be later than 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So keep your eyes peeled for that, man. Shout out to all of y'all, man. Yo, big vibes today in the chat, man. I see all the biceps out there from the gang. Too many to go through. Just salute to y'all and know that means a lot to what we do over here in helping us raise the bar over here on Authentic and the Beard. And that's going to do it. Y'all know how we end every show over here. Keep raising that bar. I see Marjorie's in the building. I got to send a shout out to the queen one time. Shout out Marjorie in the building. But keep raising that bar. Keep living those dreams, because the universe flows in Technicolor and surround sound. And a life without dreams is a life in black and white. Big shout out to the podcast GOAT and New York legend, Combat Jack. That is a wrap, y'all. Appreciate y'all time today. It's been a vibe over here on the Giant Overreaction. Man, we just continuously raising that bar. I see Kevin the PR said, I'm straggling. Yeah, you definitely straggling in the building. My dog, Richie Westcott, is in the building as well as we sign off, y'all. Hey, enjoy y'all Monday afternoon. I pray to God that y'all have a speedy week. We get to Friday and you get that paycheck in hand and you can get to the weekend and start enjoying yourselves, man. Y'all enjoy the rest of y'all Monday afternoon. I'll catch y'all at the latest on Wednesday. Who knows? Maybe we pop up for an impromptu vibe on Tuesday afternoon when I get this session over with. We shall see. But y'all, all love. Y'all enjoy it, man. I'll catch y'all on the flip side. Be easy. Peace, y'all.